Kaaba upon you in Jerusalem, stand and face Jerusalem. Blessing of the Feast of Dedication. Barakatha Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Asherah, Ethelanawa, Hayawum, Chanakah, Bashalawum, Tawada, Amen. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, the Most High, in the name of Christ, that gives to us the feast of the dedication in peace. Thank you, so be it. Ha'ayim Ma'ad Asherayim Akkad, Psalms 121. Anya Harayim Ayanyam Ya O Haharayim Ma'ayan Yabawa'a Isaiah Yabawa'a Mayahawa Shaisha Shamayim Wa'aratazar La'a Yanathan Lamawat Regalia, Yala'a, Yalawam, Shashamarka, Hana, La'a, Yalawam, Wala'a, Yayashun, Shashwama, Yashala, Yahweh, Shamaya, Yahweh, Tazaya, Aya, Yad, Yamyin, Yawamam, Hashamash, La'a, Hakaya, Wayara, La'a, Balayala, Yahweh, Yashmaya, Makal, Ra, Yashmar, Napasha, Yahweh, Yashmar, Hawalakia, Wabawa'aya, Ma'aitha, Wa'ai, Ayulam, Basham, Yahweh Shai, Tawada, Amen.
Psalms 121, a song of degrees. I will lift up mine eyes into the hills from whence cometh my help. My help cometh from the Lord which made heaven and earth. He will not suffer thy foot to be moved. He that keepeth thee will not slumber. Behold, he that keepeth Israel shall neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord is thy keeper. The Lord is thy shade upon thy right hand. The sun shall not smite thee by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord shall preserve thee from all evil. He shall preserve thy soul. The Lord shall preserve thy going out and thy coming in from this time forth, and even forevermore. Amen.
Amen. Shema Yashrela Hill Israel. Shema Yashrela Yahweh Allah Hayanawa Yahweh Akkad. Shema Yashrela Yahweh Allah Hayanawa Yahweh Akkad. Shema Yashrela Yahweh Allah Hayanawa Yahweh Akkad.
Deuteronomy 6 and 4. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord. Amen.
Amen. Apallah Yahweh, the Lord's Prayer. Abi Yanawa, Shabbat Shemayim, Kodash, Hayah, Shamka, Yahweh, Malakwithka, Thaba'a, Ratazawanka, Hayya, Aisha, Ba'aratazar, Ka, Bashamayim, Nathalanawa, Lakham, Yowum, Za, Wasalakanawa, Kababathnawa, Kasalaknawa, Kababathanawa, Wala'a, Habayana, Oh, Nasayawan, Abo, Hawashinawa, Marakaya, Laka, Hamalakwa, Waha'ala, Wathapara, La'aywalam, Amen.
Matthew 6 and 9. After this manner, therefore, pray ye. Our Father which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen.
Amen. Ha'aishara Mataz, War for 10 Commandments. La'a, Yahaya, Laka, Alahayim, Akarim, Al Panya. La'a, Baisha, Laka, Paso, Wala'a, Taibadam, La'a, Alaquaka, Shamwa, Yahweh, Alahayaka, Lashua, Zakar, Ath, Hayawum, Hashabath, Lakodashua, Kabad, Abiaka, Wa'amaka, La'a, Ratazak, La'a, Fana'at, La'a, Takanab, La'a, Tainab, Shakur, La'a, Takamad, Ko, Asherah, Lara'ayaka, Aman.
Deuteronomy 5 and 7. Thou shalt have none other gods before me. Thou shalt not make thee any graven image or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the waters beneath the earth. Thou shalt not bow down thyself unto them nor serve them. For I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me, and showing mercy unto thousands of them that love me and keep my commandments. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain, for the Lord will not hold him guiltless that taketh his name in vain. Keep the Sabbath day to sanctify it, as the Lord thy God hath commanded thee. 6 days thou shalt labor and do all thy work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. In it thou shalt not do any work, thou, nor thy son, nor thy daughter, nor thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thy ox, nor thine ass, nor any of thy cattle, nor thy stranger that is within thy gates, that thy manservant and thy maidservant may rest as well as thou. And remember that thou wast a servant in the land of Egypt, and that the Lord thy God brought thee out thence through a mighty hand and by a stretched out arm. Therefore the Lord thy God commanded thee to keep the Sabbath day. Honor thy father and thy mother as the Lord thy God hath commanded thee, that thy days may be prolonged, and that it may go well with thee in the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. Thou shalt not kill, neither shalt thou commit adultery, neither shalt thou steal, neither shalt thou bear false witness against thy neighbor, neither shalt thou desire thy neighbor's wife, neither shalt thou covet thy neighbor's house, his field, or his manservant, or his maidservant, his ox or his ass, or anything that is thy neighbor's. Amen.
Aman. Shabbat. See. Barakatha Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Asherah, Nathalanawa, Pari Hagapin, Thwada Aman, La Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Ath Yasha'ala. Imadu upon you, Jerusalem, stand and face Jerusalem. Barakatha Yahweh, Hagadol, Rakawam, Abiyar, Wanara'ah, Aliyawan, Malak, Shal, Shemayim, Wa'aratazah, Wakol, Debayim, Kayayam, Wagam, Hamashiyat, Mayahawa, Adawan Noah, Ahab Noah, Apalah, Yahweh Yahweh Shah, Zakar Noah, Yahweh, Barataza 1, Ainka, Yasha'ala, Izar Banah, Wasap, Yasha'ala, O, Nanawa, Yum, Aitha, Kayawamyam, Makwadam, Babakusha, Shalat, Maika'ala, Wahataza Wadat, Alahayim, La, Maganawa, Rapanawa, Washamar, Alnawa, Ba'aikwar, Shalat, Haroka, Shaw, Yahawashai, Lanawa, Lalamanawa, Rabim, Kakama, Fabawana, Wada'aith, Shaw, Debarka, Bahasham, Yahawashai, Tawada, Sum Yad, Waiwalam, Aman. English translation. Blessed are you, Yahweh, the great, merciful, mighty, terrible, most high power, King of heaven and earth, and all things living. And also the anointed from Yahweh, our Lord, our friend, the wonderful counselor, Yahweh Shai. Remember us, Yahweh, favorably, your people, Israel. Help us build and gather Israel, most high, we beg you, right now, like the days of old. Please send Michael and the righteous powers to protect us, heal us, and watch over us. Mainly send the spirit of Yahweh Shai to us, teach us much wisdom, knowledge, and understanding of thy word. In the name of Yahweh Shai, thank you always and forever. So be it. Keep the Hebrew on. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, that gives us the law. Barakatha Yahweh, Bahasham Yahweh Shai, Asherah, Ethelanawa, Hathorah. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, that gives us light to see. Barakatha Yahweh, Bahasham Yahweh Shai, Asherah, Ethelanawa, Awar, Lara Awah. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, that gives to us the rams on to call the people. Barakatha Yahweh, Bahasham Yahweh Shai, Asherah, Ethelanawa, Quran, Ha'ayo, La Korah, Ha'aim. Shabbat, be seated. Right. I want to say shalom. Shalom, shalom to all the brothers and sisters throughout the four corners. Those listening to us on the conference, those watching us on the live stream. I want to say shalom, peace to all, and happy Feast of the Dedication, or Ashar Kanakah. All right. So this is the 8th day, the closing, the last day, day of Holy Convocation, to come before and close out this feast week, festive week, in honor of the ventures of what our ancestors did in the past to save and protect the nation from the Greeks at that time that tried to take us down, to defile the temple, so forth and so on, right? As we started with last week during the opening services, and we touched on some of the history of the beginnings of the Edomite or Greek kingdom, right? And how they came into rulership and started with Philip the Macedon, but really took hold with his son Alexander the Greek, and how he began to take his forces and spread throughout back then was the known world that they began to conquer. how time passed and progressed, where his kingdom began to split 4 regions under 4 leaders. And we see that under the Seleucid dynasty is where, our storyline, and as far as for where we fit, takes hold and shape, and how they came in and came with some wicked practices, some customs that, totally go against the Most High's commandments, goes against what we stand for, what the true worshipers of the Most High, follow according to the scriptures. And they came and pushed that vibration, influenced a lot of some of our people, our leaders, elders, into following suit. Also threatened us with death and harm and violence, that if we didn't follow their ways, that, harm would come to us. We read last week that they even came against us on the Sabbath day, and we had a group of our people who, wanted to keep the Sabbath day holy and not, wage any warfare and just keep it a peaceful, restful day. And they didn't fight against the enemies when they came in. They wound up costing them their lives. But we see that Mattathias and his sons and those that band around him use wisdom that says if we leave them alone and don't fight against them, they're going to come and root us all out. So they would fight on the Sabbath day to defend themselves, their families, the temple, the nation, name of the Most High, right? Because the Most High's name was on us. It was given to us by the Most High, and it was on us. So we defended, all of those different things when you look at it as we're reading in the chapters. And we got up to a point where, the elder statesman Mattathias at that time, it was time that he was transitioning. And as we're reading towards the end of the 2nd chapter of First Maccabees, we see that he did what sometimes you see in movies where they say this is probably one of the best ways to go out. It's like you're going out home on your own bed. You have family around you, and you're able to kind of give that last talk, right? But his talk was talk of wisdom, kind of set things right after he transitioned, as far as for the characteristics and the skills that certain people had, as far as for his sons, and who would be best fit to do certain things within the nation. So he did that, right? And it ended off with Mattathias, encouraging his sons to choose Judas Maccabees as the captain of the host, right? Because he saw that in him. So I'm gonna read that. And then we'll transition into the second half of the storyline. So First Maccabees, the 2nd chapter, because it kind of ties in. 2nd chapter and the 66th verse. For the chat. Oh, for the, I can't even see it because I'm up on the live stream now. What does it say? What, the date? Okay. Got it. So I'm going to go to First Maccabees, the 2nd chapter, and the 66th verse, just to use this to segue into the 3rd chapter. It says, as for Judas Maccabeus, he have been mighty and strong even from his youth up. Let him be your captain and fight the battle of the people. Right. So Mattathias, it was something that he observed in one of his sons, Judas, that he was the one who was valiant, courageous, right, ready to go to war and fight for whatever. Right. Let him be the captain of the host. You sometimes you see that when you got siblings, and you'll see that one of your siblings is the studious one, right? He's the meticulous one, right? He's the one that is probably more aligned to handle affairs and business and things of that nature. Then you have another one who's always out there in the front line, right? If anybody says something against the family, he's out there ready to go to war, right? Okay, that's kind of like the defender, the protector of the family, right? So that's kind of what Mattathias was seeing in his sons, because he saw, counsel in Simon, right? He's like the counselor of the family. Like he can pay attention to detail and hear certain things and give good advice, sound doctrine, and use that to the betterment of the good for the people, right? So he did that. He kind of gave them, that last, advice before he departed on how things should go beforehand, right? King David did the same thing with his son Solomon, right? He kind of told him what things needed to be done, who he should do business with as far as for the building of the temple, and he got certain things for him. And then he kind of even went into certain affairs that, he had issues with. He's like, I couldn't deal with him, but you deal with him. Like, make sure you handle that situation and watch this man and make sure you avenge this one over here. He kind of laid all that out, right? So this is someone who's, who has their affairs in order. Sometimes we forget that, right? And it's good that the scriptures gives us, examples of certain people who had or set up things for those afterward. You see Abraham before he departed, transition, he distributed his goods, right? He gave his sons, some things are part of his inheritance, and then he gave Isaac, things that pertain to him, right? Some of that, we should also consider, right? To kind of just start always thinking for, worst case scenario, or thinking for when, things will go, as far as you plan, but you already have things set up and prepared. So this is kind of what, Mattathias was doing a little bit with his own family and his own sons, was to set certain things put things in order before he transitioned, right? So something even good, for us today to consider and do, so that something happens, you have your legacy and you have your affairs in order, right? So moving on, Mattathias died, and now it's time for Judas Maccabeus to take over the nation, right? That was standing up against the Greeks and their culture and their influences and their armies that was coming in to take us down, right? So this is where we're going to pick up from the opening last week. We're going to pick up in 1 Maccabees, the 3rd chapter. All right, 1 Maccabees, the 3rd chapter. It reads, it says, then his son Judas, called Maccabeus, rose up in his stead, right? Or his stead, right? So now he's taken the position that his father left void. Now he's filling that void, right? He's now captain of the host for the nation back then. Verse 2, and all his brethren helped him, and so did all they that held with his father, and they fought with cheerfulness the battle of Israel, right? So usually that happens, right? Those who was your predecessor sets things in the right, and then the people acknowledge, and those help you around. So you have some people who are advisors, some people who want to take up arms with you, some people who are your treasury. You got everyone who held the position for your father or for the previous predecessor. It's like, okay, now we're going to do the same thing for you, right? Something that was done when Moses departed, right? Joshua was the one who came in after Moses, and the people rallied around Joshua in the same capacity, right? They did that to give them the vote of confidence that he had the backing of the people and those who were surrounding him, that they would have full confidence that he can do the job or fill the position that was left void, right? So it says again, and all his brethren helped him, and so did all they that held with his father, and they fought with cheerfulness the battle of Israel, right? So everybody that knew his pops, right, accepted him as if he was his pops, right? Took him as the new leader of the nation or the realm at that time, following his pop Steve. I'm going to read this in Ecclesiasticus in the Apocrypha, chapter 30, I think verse 4. You can write down 1 all the way to 6, but I'm going to read from 4 to 6. So Ecclesiasticus in the Apocrypha, chapter 30, verses 1 to 6. But I'm going to read verses 4 to 6. So it says, though his father die, yet he is as though he were not dead, for he have left one behind him that is like himself, right? So the father Mattathias in this case is gone, but he's left one who's just like him, and sometimes even better than him, right? That's where we bring this up about the saying like father like son, right? We do the same thing for Yahushua and the Most High, right? When they ask to see the Father, Yahushua said, well, if you've seen me, you've seen the Father. Same way the Father thinks is what I'm here to speak about and what I'm here to advocate for. His words are my words, right? So he's now going to champion the same thing that the Father left behind or left for his legacy. It says, while he lived, he saw and rejoiced in him. And when he died, he was not sorrowful, right? So he knew that his son or one of his sons that was coming up, was able to take that torch, right? You see that in business. Sometimes you got someone who's running a business, head of the company, and they may say, I'm grooming you to, one day I'm not going to be here. You're going to have to take this whole company and run with it. So they're going to, sometimes he gives them a little task or he gives them a position where he can see him grow, and he sees a skill set in him, and he's happy and he's proud. He's like, he's probably better than me. He has more energy than me. So when I'm gone, when I'm not here, I feel it's left in good hands. Right? I feel that it's going to thrive without me being here because he has a mind just like mine, right? So he says, verse 6, he left behind him an avenger against his enemies and one that shall requite kindness to his friends. So when it now comes when he's not there, right, you don't have to worry about all the wrongdoers who did the family or the nation or those close to him wrong, that he's going to have someone who's going to handle that situation. He's not going to forget what happened, and he's going to make sure that he protects his and his own and everyone else around him and goes after those who've done wrong or wicked, right? That's kind of, you always want to have that, because sometimes you'll see in movies or certain things where, the children don't have the same thought and they befriend your enemies, or they want to go a different way, right? I think it was in that movie with Tyler Perry, the one with the Edomite lady who had the company, and her son was messing with Sanaa Lathan, and he was wanting to go and take the company in a different direction, and the mother didn't see that he was fit to run the business. So she gave it to somebody else and fired him from the company because his mind or his space, his spirit wasn't in the right space. So you have to set someone up who's going to do the right thing. Reminds me of Samuel, a righteous prophet, right? But his sons weren't following in his steed, and the people realized it. But they were set up to be the judges after Samuel, and the people complained. They came to him and says, your sons are not like you. We got to get a king. Set us up a king, because they're not judging us right. They were taking bribes and doing all kind of things. That's not in the manner of what we're reading here. So sometimes we hope that it always be the case, but there's going to be times where it's not going to be, right? They're not going to have your thoughts or your spirit or your conviction in mind to carry on the family tradition.
I've seen that talking about that image a lot in different movies, stories, like one called Eastern Promises, where it was like a mob family, like an Eastern European mob family. And it was one of his top henchmen, he preferred him over his own son. Kind of like in Gladiator with Marcus, the guy who was playing Marcus Aurelius. He preferred Maximus over his own son.
Right.
There's a verse that deals with that. This is Proverbs 17:2. Proverbs 17:2. And the movie you're talking about, I'm not super familiar with the Tyler Perry movie, but is it The Family That Prays?
I believe so. Yeah, I think it's that one.
That's the one that is from what I saw.
a good movie.
Proverbs 17. I think I saw that. Only one I seen it was like that.
Oh yeah, that was okay, but I think I had to rank them. I think that's probably like top two, top three. I have to think about them all, but that one was really because it had like a lot of different dynamics in it, marriage and adultery, money, like how money, the lust of money gets you, and like a lot of different things in it to just kind of draw off of. But
Proverbs 17:2, it says, "A wise servant shall have rule over a son that causeth shame, shall have part of the inheritance among the brethren." So the scenario you cited from that movie sounds just like that.
Okay. So back in 1 Maccabees chapter 3, we have verse 3 now. It says, "So gat he his people great honor, and put on a breastplate as a giant, and girt his warlike harness about him, and he made battles, protecting the host with his sword." Right. So now he's really getting a name for himself. He's going out there, waging wars and battles, and holding down the fort. Right. And as he continuously wins different little battles here and there, his name and his fame gets greater and greater and greater. Right. Which is like common to most, right? Whether you're a sports team or someone in the neighborhood, when you keep winning and you keep taking down your adversaries, your name precedes you, right? So this is what was going on with Judas now.
What you were saying earlier, I meant to mention that you can just write down two verses, but they say the same thing. It was when Hezekiah was getting ready to die. He was close to death before that miracle. God extending his life. One of his prophets told him, "Set your house in order, and you shall die." Right. It's 2 Kings 20:1. 2 Kings chapter 20 and verse 1. And also Isaiah 38.
So that was 2 Kings chapter 20, verse 1, Isaiah chapter 38, verse 1. Right. And that goes into scriptures pertaining to setting your house in order before you transition. Right. So verse 4 now in 1 Maccabees chapter 3. It says, "In his acts," not acts with an axe, X, but acts, like the book of Acts, "he was like a lion, and like a lion's whelp roaring for his prey," right? So when it talks about he was like a lion, but a lion's whelp, right? We kind of always go to Genesis 49, where it talks about Judah as a lion's whelp, right? But like an old lion, right? He started out like a nice young lion. A lion's whelp is like a young up and coming lion that has a lot of energy, a lot of veracity, a lot of tenacity, right? That's going out there, and he sees the prey, he goes right after it, right? He's quick to the draw. So this is Judas in that mentality as he's now taking over as captain of the host. When there was a situation or conflict, he's ready. He's right on top of it, ready to handle it. Right. This is, if you look at a parallel to today's leadership, sometimes you'll have folks who are put in a position of being captain of the host, and they're kind of like elders, right? You got people who are, your generals who are going out to war, and they're almost, like 60, 70 years old, whereas, and they're not actually going out there to fight. They're sitting back in the tent or compound where they're not getting no action. They're just advising, right? They're just saying this is what you should do. Whereas when you see it in the scriptures, actual kings who are rulers and who were young, these guys went out to fight. They went out to battle. David went out to battle. Even Saul went out to battle, right? Josiah went out to battle, right? These were not guys who just was, sitting in the building saying, "Hey, you need to go out here and go tackle this." No, they put on their armors, get their swords, and they went out there in combat. You see that on some of the, movies and like Game of Thrones type movies and things of that nature where, they even went out to fight. Right? They didn't stay in the castle. They got on their horse and trotted on out there and started swinging their swords. So he here, he's like a lion, a young lion that's roaring to the prey. I mean, he wants to eat. He wants to get his killing. Right? It says in verse 5, for he pursued the wicked and sought them out and burnt up those that vexed his people. So, anyone who, especially of his people who were wicked, who were traitors, right? Coons, turncoats, he went and sought them out and killed them too, right? And then those who were, an adversary to his people that caused harm to Israel, he went after them as well. So he was about, total righteousness, right? You could not be around him and be lukewarm or be a person who was known to be a traitor to his people. You was taken out, right? There was no mercy for you back then. Now we got mercy. Now you have an opportunity. But back then it was, you're going to be resolved of your duty. You're going to be resolved of your position here on this earth. If you take that. And that was kind of one of those ways of trying to rid evil or wickedness from amongst the people. It's like, you see someone doing wrong, you see them being killed or taken out for doing that. It's like either you're going to make the decision to change or you're going to befall the same fate. So what did I say? I said resolve? Yeah. You're gonna have that same fate befall you if you don't change your ways and change your thinking, right? So again, it says, for he pursued the wicked and sought them out and burnt up those that vex his people. Verse 6, wherefore the wicked shrunk for fear of him, and all the workers of iniquity were troubled because salvation prospered in his hand, right? So, I usually quote out Deuteronomy 2:25 in the Old Testament and how the Most High changes the heart and mind of individuals that come up against you, right? Everything starts with the Most High before it becomes, conquest of man. It begins there with the Lord. And then Deuteronomy 2:25, it says, this day will I begin to put the dread of thee and the fear of thee upon the nations that are under the whole heaven, who shall hear report of thee and shall tremble and be in anguish because of thee. So as he's, starting out, taking over his position and winning certain battles and wars, again, people started to be privy to what he's doing and hearing about the conquest and certain men that he's taken down who probably have reputations themselves. And he was taking them down with ease. So now, as they're hearing this, and they realize that he took down this one and then this one and then this one, man, I'm just probably next on the list. So it says, these other men, these other people who were adversaries to him began to shrink. They didn't have as much confidence and courage that they did before when they now knew that Judas was coming against them or coming for them, right? So they took that same mentality that we read in Joshua with Rahab the harlot and how she advised the spies that, hey, they hear a report of what you did to the Amorites, and they were, everyone shrunk for fear of what your God and what you guys are capable of doing. Right? I just quoted. This is Joshua, book of Joshua, the second chapter, and verses 9 to 11. So again, that was Joshua 2, 9 to 11, as it pertains to the story line of when the spies came to go spy out the land, and they encountered, when they was going into Jericho, and they encountered Rahab the harlot, right? And she kind of gave them the background of what the mind state of the men that was there in that realm and how they viewed Israel, right? It's the same reading here now in Maccabees on how they're looking at Judas and the men that are with him. Right? So now we're going to go back to First Maccabees, verse 7 now. It says, he grieved also many kings and made Jacob glad with his acts, and his memorial is blessed forever. Right. So that's that's like the precursor to, you know, what was going to happen to Judas later on, right? Because we know now in the history we have a day honored, you know, unto Judas, right? The day of Judas for what he did in another event, right? He took down Nicanor, right? We kind of give him a name and honor him forever and ever as a solemn assembly that we do for him. But it says, he grieved many kings and made Jacob glad with his acts, or Israel happy with what he was doing. So now those who felt threatened and felt that their lives was at stake, now you have someone who is now going out there and defending the people, not only just defending them, but he's going out there and ridding evil from amongst those who are around them in their region. So that made them happy, of course, right? They're getting the victory over their enemies, right? And now they feel a little bit more, you know, protected, that the Most High is working with Judas and those who are fighting with him, so that, you know, they felt more comfortable. No one wants to be in the straits where they don't know if their lives are going to make it to the next day, right? You don't want to have, that's a worrisome feeling. So in this sense, you know, what Judas was doing, you know, kind of comforted the people and made them feel, you know, much more better about what was going on back then. It says, verse 8, it says, moreover, he went through the cities of Judah, destroying the ungodly out of them and turning away wrath from Israel, right? So, you know, just like how we read in the book of Joshua, Achan, who took it a cursed thing, sometimes wicked Israelites can bring down a nation, right? The sin that's a part of us or amongst us or that's in the midst of us can bring all of us down. So it was Judas's mission to make sure that he go and rid wickedness from out of the nation. So this is kind of highlighting that, what he says, moreover, he went through the cities of Judah, destroying the ungodly out of them. So it wasn't just the nations, the heathen that were the ungodly. You had their ways seduce some of our own people, and they became ungodly, uncircumcised, following after their customs. So Judas had to go and rid them too, right? Kill any wicked Israelites that was amongst them, that was following after their practices and their ways, right? Because we wanted to make sure the Most High was fully working to protect us as a people. Verse 9, so that he was removed, Salak, so that he was renowned unto the utmost parts of the earth, and he received unto him such as were ready to perish, right? So again, it's just highlighting how his name, his fame spread farther throughout utmost regions. So people who probably don't even have anything directly related to what was going on was hearing about this man, Judas Maccabeus, in Israel and what they're doing at that time, right? His fame superseded him. Then it says he began to get people who wanted to join with him that was ready to perish. It's like, man, before I wasn't ready. I wasn't apt to go try to fight or be a fighter or try to put my life on the line. But in this case, man, I'm going to go out there and fight and be in accordance with what he's doing, right? I could put my life on the line for this guy, right? It's like when we read in Second Maccabees, you know, it's kind of different now because a lot of times we're just seeing things happen as they do when it happens on the news. It's kind of interesting when you realize that a person or a man is protecting and working with the Most High. And you know, we've seen in Second Maccabees, Shalom says, we've seen in Second Maccabees where the Most High sent the angels down to fight with Judas Maccabees and the men. Right. So imagine you being there and you in a conflict. I don't know. You might be here in the city. You might be somewhere in the sticks and you got some kind of, you know, some terrorist group that's coming after you. Hey, they don't like you. And all of a sudden you realize that you got the angels. You got the Most High standing there with you, trying to go defending you to go against this opposition. And you know that the Most High sending angels there. You know, that feeling is like the confidence level has to be through the roof. Right? That means, listen, I don't care what can happen. If I got the angels or I got these people here who I know the Lord is with me, I'm ready to die. What else can be better than this? Right? You know, it comes a certain point in time where everything else doesn't matter. right? You know, a lot of the things that we hold near and dear to each other at that point doesn't matter. This is like most important, right? And I think what is that movie with is it 500? When he was going out to fight and his wife was championing him to go. It wasn't like, you know, nowadays it's like, you know, when you go out to, oh no, don't go, stay, let them do that. No, don't do. Nah, this is something that as a 3,000, 300. What did I say? 500, 300. Right, and 300. That's kind of the spirit that she had, right? But in today's time, sometimes it's difficult to just, you know, want to just depart because we kind of have a worldly mentality of how life is. But in this situation, when you are up against life and death, and now you've seen someone who's going out there who's fighting to protect not only you and your family, but everyone who's standing for the same thing, you kind of have a little bit more vote of confidence to go out there and say, listen, go and join with them men. These are righteous men, right? Go out there and do what you can to protect. This is what caused Judith to go and do what she did, right? Judith wouldn't have put her life on the line when men wasn't doing it, right? They were afraid and they were about to give themselves over to be servants. So it comes a point where nothing else matters. You put your life on the line because you feel that this is the thing to do. So you had a lot of these men that now said, I'm going to join with Judas and leave, you know, whatever it is I got going on over there. I'm going out because what's more important than this, right? They coming against us to kill us. And this guy's going out there and he's not only winning, he's fighting valiantly. And then he's now cleansing the nation from all kind of wickedness that we had that was polluted by what the Greeks was doing. So we in 1 Maccabees 3 at verse 10 now. So it's and Apollonius gathered the Gentiles together and a great host out of Samaria to fight against Israel, right? So, you know, of course, when you hear someone's antics and the things that they're doing, you gotta arm up, right? You gotta strap up. So they went out there and got some of the allies together and says, hey, we got this group over here, we got this group over here, we got this group over here. Hey, I need that handled, right? So I was one of the leaders at that time, gathered his allies together, go and fight against Judas, and that was fighting with him. Verse 11, which thing when Judas perceived, he went forth to meet him, and so he smote him and slew him. Many also fell down slain, but the rest fled, right? So just like we read earlier, Judas is like a lion's whelp, right? He's not one to just hear and not, you know, do something or be afraid and want to, you know, run back and do something. No, Judas was one who went to the conflict. So as soon as he heard that Apollonius was coming with his armies to come fight, he went there to meet him, got engaged in the conflict, slew Apollonius, right, and slew some of the men, and then everyone else, when they realized they weren't winning the war, they ran, they fled, right? Verse 12, wherefore Judas took their spoils and Apollonius' sword also, and therewith he fought all his life long, right? So here's this Apollonius, probably one of the most renowned individuals that he went to fight against at that time, and he probably had a nice sword, right? A nice weapon. You know, sometimes people go out there and get, you know, a decked out weapon or a sword or a weapon that's made from some type of metals and it looks good. So he took that sword and used that to fight, right? You had other individuals that did the same thing in the past, where they used either their sword or their armor to go and fight wars, like King David did, right? It says, I'm going to use this sword, I'm going to use this helmet or whatever, and I'm going to use this to protect me when I go out and fight my battles. So I'm going to read 12 again. Wherefore Judas took their spoils and Apollonius' sword, and therewith he fought all his life long. Shalom. I think. Let's see here. Right. So you can write down 1 Samuel 21 and 9 to go verse 12. Just as a precept where King David asked for Goliath's sword that he killed with the slingshot. Right. After they killed him, they took his sword and put it up somewhere. David went back and asked for it, right? Because that's what he wanted to use to go fight with. So that was 1 Samuel 21 and 9. So verse 13, it says, now when Saron, a prince of the army of Syria, heard say that Judas had gathered unto him a multitude and a company of the faithful to go out with him to war. For I will go fight with Judas and them that are with him who despise the king's commandment, right? So this is an opportunity to boost yourself up as a prize fighter, as a prince in the realm who's going out and defeated someone with a name, right? I mean, it's common, right? Everyone wants to go out there and get themselves a name to say, hey, I defeated him, or such and such the dragon slayer, right? You had that name. Oh yeah, he's the one that defeated Judas. So now everything that Judas had amassed as far as for his reputation now falls on Saron, right? Because Judas beat all these other kings and killed all these other kings, and his name went to the utmost. If he was to come and kill Judas, now his name would go to the utmost. That's what he's saying, right? I'm going to get me a name and honor in the kingdom. Maybe I would get elevated in the kingdom as well, right? Maybe I'll be second in command unto the king, right? Verse 15, it says, so he made him ready to go up, and there went with him a mighty host of the ungodly to help him, and to be avenged of the children of Israel. So Saron is now gathering up the host and a lot of ungodly men from the nations that came with him to come and fight against us back then. First Maccabees 3, and I just read 15. You got Apocrypha? Okay. Well, we're reading in chapters 3 and 4. Well, we're reading through all the verses, so we're reading chapter 3 and we're reading chapter 4. Go on. Verse 16, it says, and when he came near to the going up of Beth-horon, Judas went forth to meet him with a small company, right? So, the lion's whelp didn't care about numbers, right? He's probably a person who understands history where the Most High says it's not all about numbers, right? He doesn't care about, tens of thousands. He can defeat an army or a host or people with 50. He can defeat them with 5. Doesn't matter. The Lord can put the spirit of might on any individual to take down a whole host. So he says, he came near to the going up of Beth-horon. Judas went forth to meet him with a small company, who, when they saw the host coming to meet them, said unto Judas, how shall we be able, being so few, to fight against so great a multitude and so strong, seeing we are ready to faint with fasting all this day, right? So, prior to fighting this war or coming into this conflict, the men most likely went and prayed to the Most High and fasted. Some of the same thing we've seen during the time of Esther, when Esther's called a 3-day fast prior to her going into the king, or other times where before we went into a situation, the men fasted. You read that in the book of Judith. You fasted before the decision was made or the conflict was entered. So now as they're about to go to war and they only have but so few full of people that's about to fight, they're looking at the enemy. They're like, how are we going to fight this, man? We tired. We just coming off of a fast. We don't have the same amount of men as they do. That's going to mean I got to take like 25 men myself, or at least 100. How am I going to do that? I ain't got no food, no nourishment. How's this going to happen? Right? Verse 18, unto whom Judas answered, it is no hard matter for many to be shut up in the hands of a few. And with the God of heaven, it is all one to deliver with a great multitude or a small company, right? So this is something that, Judas understood, being in the spirit, to know that the Lord can fight for you, right? We don't put our trust in weapons or strength in numbers. Our trust should rely on the Most High, right? Whereas he can then come and either give you that spirit of might, or he can send angels down to come help you fight, right? So this is where trusting in the scriptures and trusting in the Most High comes into play. Because sometimes you find yourself in a situation where you don't see that you are best equipped. You may not have the experience wisdom that someone else may have, and you're put into a situation where, you know, everyone's coming against you and you need to now produce. Or if you're in a conflict and you're out here and you are here and you don't have anybody else there and it's just you, how are you going to get out of this? Right? If you put your trust and your faith in the Most High, you sent that prayer, the Most High is going to come through and you can't doubt. That's one of the problems that we have. People sometimes doubt, or we get impatient, or we get irrational. And we want to take matters into our own hands. And we start thinking of the plan B now to become your plan A instead of Most High being your plan A. That's when things falls, right? Things don't work itself out because you now have your own agenda instead of allowing the Most High to be, you know, your reward, as the scripture says, to go and fight for you, right? Not forgetting that you're going to have to actually put some effort in, but let that confidence, let that trust be with the Most High that he can get you through these battles, that he can get you through any situation that you're going through, right? Even in a carnal sense, sometimes when I'm at work and I know I'm about to go into a meeting and I got people in there that I know are much smarter than me. I know have more skill set than me. How am I going to go and do this, right? I'm a little bit nervous. So I'll set up a quick prayer and I let the Most High go and speak for me. I let the Most High put the right words in my mouth to kind of get me out of the situation. Even when I'm doing a service, I'll pray to the Most High that the Most High now send me that spirit. Give me that edification. Give me that knowledge. Give me that wisdom. Whatever it is that I need, the Most High is going to be my driving force and not me, right? I've experienced many times when I tried to be my own driving force and it don't work out too well, right? So I got to trust the Most High, but still put the application of me going through the motions, right? So this is kind of what Judas is trying to now advise and encourage the men here, that don't worry about it. It's a tough thing to do, but once you go through it, then you start to build that confidence, right? Then you start to trust the Most High even more and more, right? It says in verse 19, for the victory of battle standeth not in the multitude of an host, but strength comes from heaven, right? So in this situation, the victory is always going to come from the Most High, right? Never going to come from, you know, Nabiah with his sword or with this. No, it's always going to come from the Most High. Once we realize that and we trust that, we should never be able to have to fall or lose to anything unless it's the Most High's will. Because sometimes certain things are a learning experience, right? They say sometimes in order for you to succeed, you got to learn to fail, right? Sometimes certain people don't want to put that effort forth because they fear failing and not trusting that they can overcome or do it. They just fear never wanting to do it. So in this regard, you got to always be willing to go out there. These men was willing to die. They were ready to pay the ultimate price. Sometimes we'd be afraid to just be ridiculed or someone pointing the finger or you using a couple dollars or something like that. These men were ready to pay the ultimate price. And now to put their trust on the line that says that the Lord is going to be there. Right? Did they doubt? That's what we're reading right here. Some of them did doubt. And Judas had to remind them, don't worry about that. This is not how it was done in the past. Go check out what happened to certain men and individuals in the past and see how the Most High came through. Verse 20, they come against us in much pride and iniquity to destroy us and our wives and children and spoil us. But we fight for our lives and our laws, right? So sometimes some people just come against you for greed, for envy, covetous, right? And now it's a harm or something that they're trying to take away from you, that now you are the one who now is fighting for your life or fighting for your name, right? Let's go to 2 Maccabees. Judas had to give another stir up of words almost similar to this. 2 Maccabees, the 15th chapter. 2 Maccabees 15. (17). 2 Maccabees 15 and 17. Shah, you can read that real quick.
Second Maccabees 15:17. Thus being well comforted by the words of Judas, which were very good, and able to stir them up to valor, and to encourage the hearts of the young men, they determined not to pitch camp, but courageously to set upon them, manfully to try the matter by conflict, because the city and the sanctuary and the temple were in danger.
Keep going.
That they looked for their wives
That they
and
took.
children,
Read that again.
for the care that they
Took.
for the care that they took for their wives and their children, their brethren and kinsfolk was in least accounted with them. But the greatest and principal fear was for the holy temple.
Right. So now at that time, remember, Nicanor said that he was going to come and destroy and break down that temple. Right. So now, not only did they come in out fearing that when he does come and take them down, that he's going to go and destroy the temple. The temple being at that time what we viewed as one of those sacred things that we held in regard to draw us close to the Most High. When we sinned, what do? We went and offered up a sacrifice to the Most High. When we wanted to get a Most High a gift, what did? We went to the temple. To the Most High, a burnt offering, a peace offering. All that was being done at the temple by the priest. So now if they destroy the temple, how are we going to do that with the Most High? That's how we're looking at it. So these men, not to say that the women were insignificant, their children were insignificant, the nation was insignificant. It's just saying that there's levels to it now. It's like, listen, that was our main focus. So they had to put certain things in chambers in their mind and say, man, I can't believe it. They're about to come and destroy the Most High's temple, right? The most renowned temple in all the world. That's what the scripture said. There is no temple or was no temple that was more renowned, more gracious as that temple, right? It's not here anymore, right? Because imagine if it was here, man, what, right? There's certain things that is just beautiful that the Most High just either had it taken away or it's hidden. Because if it wasn't, man, what Esau would be doing to her right now, and the nations would be doing to her right now. You got Cush saying that they got the Ark of the Covenant. I was watching today, they got Yahushai's, the sepulcher that Yahushai was buried in, right? So they got people coming through and, it's like a tour. I'm like, work for real? Yeah, it's money, right? They're making about $30 a pop or something to get somebody to go through on that tour. But yeah, it'll be made of merchandise up. So certain things just have to be either taken away or hidden so that they can't even get to it, right? But at that point, we still had it and we regarded that very sacred. So the men was like, look, we got to go and put our lives on the line for that, right? Here, Judas is still encouraging them that, listen, we need to go put our lives on the line because they're trying to come and destroy our families now, right? Because we trying to keep the law. They want to kill us for doing it, right? So what better thing to go out there and fight for? Because if you don't fight, then what's going to happen? You're still going to die, right? Right? Either one or two things going to happen. Not just say you're still going to die. One or two things going to happen. You're going to become like one of the uncircumcised and say, all right, I'm going to go follow their ways, right? Like the ungodly did. And then, now I'm good. I'm living in a nice place. I'll probably get me a position like that wicked priest did when you read in Second Maccabees, right? He got himself, tried to become the high priest, right? But you're still going to die a wretched name. You're not going to have a righteous name attached to you when you die, right? In this case, most of the time when we think about death kind of has an ominous thought to it. We don't consider that, yeah, you die and it's gone. It's for a moment. People are going to mourn you, but in the third, fourth generation, you come back. Right now, we're sitting here in the third and fourth generation of when we was here before, right? So now, whatever we did back then is a carryover to where we are right now. The spirit of the prophets is subject to the prophets. So we hope that what we did in the past was good with the Most High, that he's now showing favor to us right now, that we're going to step up when we need to step up and go and defend, go and advocate, go and protect, do whatever it is for the righteousness of the nation. So this is the same thing now repeating itself that you had these men back then doing it. And Lord's will, if it calls for us, that we be able and prepared mentally, spiritually, to do the same thing, right? So that was 2 Maccabees 17:18. Let's go back to 1 Maccabees. So we have verse 22. It says, but wherefore the Lord himself will overthrow them before our face. And as for you, be not afraid of them, right? Again, to give that confidence, the Most High is going to defend and fight for us. And don't worry about it, right? Because if you're afraid, then what? Right? It's a law that the Most High has that if you got anybody who's out in the front lines with you and they're afraid, send they behind home. You don't need to be there, right? Because that person is going to, that leaven is going to start carrying over to the next person, right? He's going to start putting doubt in the next person, right? So again, you need people who are focused on the mission. I remember I watched the movie a long time ago, and the men is out there on the front lines fighting, and this guy who came out to the war to fight, he was talking about, yeah, I think it was some guy was trying to kick it with your wife, right? Mm-hmm. And now that's spread to everybody. There's men that's back home while you out there shooting guns. There's somebody out there trying to get with your wife. So what happened? Everybody was like, listen, man, I'm out of here, man. I got to go back and get my thing. They all broke from the camp. It's like, hold on, what's going on here, right? Granted that was wicked, but now it just poisoned everybody's mind because their mind wasn't on the conflict. Now their mind is on what's going on back home. This guy coming creeping up in my house, right? So if you're a person who's afraid, you're going to start now having that spirit jump on the next one. Like, I don't know, man. Look how many years I'm out there, man. We ain't going to win this. What are we doing out here? We might as well, listen, forget them. We need to get out of here now. We're going to be alive. We're going to still be able to fight another day, but we're going to leave. And then you start getting 3 leave and 10 leave, and everybody starts seeing people bouncing. Everybody leave. So, nah, you can't have that. Those people got to go home. Send them home before you even go out. But AWOL, yeah, but that deals with anything, right? It's like if you didn't even do anything, like if you just, you wasn't even really in war, you just bounced. You went away because nobody know where you at. You left without, alert nobody. You wasn't relieved of your duty. Yeah. So reading on, we have verse 23. Now, as soon as he had left off speaking, he leaped suddenly upon them. And so Sihon and his host was overthrown before him, right? So after he finished encouraging the camp, like the lions whelp again, he jumped on that prey, right? It's like he don't waste time, and he ain't, talking about we're going to get them a week later. He was right on them, and he destroyed and overthrew them. 24, and they pursued them from the going down of Beth Horon unto the plain, where were slain about 800 men of them, and the residue fled into the land of the Philistines, right? So back then, conflict and war, wasn't like how we have now with fighter jets flying over and dropping bombs, and you got different kind of, weight lasers or whatever it is. This is hand-to-hand combat, right? So you fighting and you fighting over territories, over terrain. You're going from one area and you chasing them down, going to the next area. Right. So not only was our stature much better back then, but your endurance was much better back then too. Right? Man, you fight the day out in the street for about a minute. You hoping you done knocked him out already, because after that you done, right? Your wind is gone. Right? It says in verse 25, then began the fear of Judas and his brethren, and an exceeding great dread to fall upon the nations round about them. So before it was just, they have fear, but now it's an exceeding great dread because he's getting no losses, right? Everyone he's coming against, he's killing them, right? And then it's just the residue, the stragglers that's fleeing and running to to these other nations, and ones who are probably telling what happened. Sometimes you have somebody go out there and fight a fight, and they kill like the majority of everybody, and they leave like one guy. You're like, all right, you go back and you tell them what you seen happen here, right? And they go back and they tell everything, and everybody now is afraid, right? So that's what's going on. The exceeding great dread is now falling upon all the rest of the nations. 26, insomuch as his fame came unto the king, and all nations talked of the battles of Judas. Right? So he's like, people just sitting around, just talking about. I bet he got like, 4 swords, right? He got 4 swords swinging them, right? Because the way he killed them, they just coming up with all kind of stories, right? Embellishing on what they have seen, right? It says 27. Now, when King Antiochus heard these things, he was full of indignation. Wherefore he sent and gathered together all the forces of his realm, even a very strong army, right? Mm-hmm. So now here's King Antiochus, right? Because his name is supposed to be the name that is presiding over the whole realm. Like everybody's supposed to be talking about him. But then you have this name that everybody's talking about. Probably all of his generals and everyone is talking about what they could do or what they are afraid of doing. And now he's upset. Right? He's like, I can't let this continue to go on because his name and his fame is going to grow by day. So I gotta handle this right now. So what does he do? He goes and gets a big army of all of his allies, those who he's conquered, to now go up and fight against Judas. Right? And even certain times when you read it in the scriptures, even when we were conquered in captivity, you had some of our men who went and fought in the nation's armies. Right? Same thing like how it is now, right? You got people in the military that's fighting the wars for another people, right? That happened in the past as well. You read, I think, I think the Egyptians or kings where we was like, we're not gonna go fight against them or for them, right? And they got upset and they came back to kind of, get revenge on us for defecting. So now, if you're not an ally, you're an adversary. That's just the way it is. You're either going to be for us or against us. There's no in between, right? What is it? Switzerland is probably like the only one that can kind of straddle the line, right? They ain't got no friends or adversaries. They're just like neutral, right? You want to come do your business here? That's cool. We don't, anybody can come here, right? And they kind of try to do it anonymous too. Like, I don't know who's here. They just come and they just do their business here. But everyone else got to pick a side. Mm-hmm. That's what they're known for, yeah. That and chocolate. Yeah. Verse 28, it says, he opened also his treasure and gave his soldiers pay for a year, commanding them to be ready whensoever he should need them, right? So you got to keep the soldiers happy, right? You got to keep them on guard, right? You got to pay them, right? It's a little bit different today in this army because these are like, I want to probably look at them as more so as like, let's say mercenaries, but those who are just for hire, right? It's like, they're on standby, but you got to give them some coins to kind of make it worth their while. Whereas here in the military, they get paid, but they get paid, they're not like in the same realm. Like they'll get, a living quarter, but it's not the best living quarter, especially if you're not, up on the rankings within the military or whatever division service you're in. So you're just there. And you got to work your way up. You got to make yourself a name. Same way. You got to come up the ranks and become a captain, become a lieutenant, then become a colonel or whatever, and then you get better pay. But then sometimes you don't even have to go fight. Right? That's the difference between these guys, our ancestors, and what goes on now. Most guys don't go out and fight when you go up the ranks. They just sitting in the back, just calling the shots. So I think it was the story with King David almost fell victim to that, where he was back home handling his affairs, and his captain of the host was out there winning wars, and they're like, listen, you got to come out here, right? Because if not, after a while they're gonna give me that credit, right? You got to be here so that all that now goes onto your name, right? And then he had to come forth because that's what happens. What happened with him and Saul, right? David got that recognition, and Saul's, his reputation started to diminish. So again, 28, he opened also his treasure and gave his soldiers pay for a year, commanding whensoever he should need them. Nevertheless, when he saw that the money of his treasures failed, and that the tributes in the country was small, because of the dissension and plague which he had brought upon the land, and taking away the laws which have been of old time, right? So what was surplus in the land as far as for money and different resources that was there before, the Most High began to now make those things go away. Like a plague came across that realm, that region, because he took away the laws, right? So now when the law started to go away, of course, certain things are not going to be as prosperous as they were before, right? You're going to go on the flip side when Joshua came into Egypt, right? When Joshua's hand and him being a righteous man, everything flourished, right? It was like anything he touched turned to gold. But now here it is. They took away the laws. They took away the righteous men. So things became wicked and it became like real dark and gloomy and things weren't as prosperous and plenteous. So he didn't have enough to pay the soldiers. So he had to go find ways somewhere else to go get this money so that he can pay his subjects, right? So it says on 30, he feared that he should not be able to bear the charges any longer, nor to have such gifts to give so liberally as he did before, for he had abounded above the kings that were before him. Wherefore, being greatly perplexed in his mind, he determined to go into Persia, there to take the tributes of the countries and to gather much money, right? So what was, in abundance before began to, fall small and sparse. So he had a great run up until that point where he was able to do better than any other king that came before him as far as for the mounting mass of wealth. But now it dried up. So now he said, all right, I'm about to go into another realm into Persia and then go start taxing them so I can get some more money to come back to this realm. These guys, they can go take down my enemies, right? Right, because if you don't have enough money to pay them, what's going to happen? You're like, all right, well, I got some jobs over here. I'm going to go handle that. And if I come back, I may help you out. So he didn't want that to happen, right? He wanted to make sure that he had them always on deck. Verse 32. So he left Lysias, a nobleman and one of the blood royal, to oversee the affairs of the king from the river Euphrates unto the borders of Egypt, right? So he has someone within his line, within his royal cabinet that was left down in charge of everything of his affairs. And to bring up his son Antiochus until he came again. Moreover, he delivered unto him the half of his forces and the elephants and gave him charge of all things that he would have him done, as also concerning them that dwelt in Judah and Jerusalem. So he's really like, him, Antiochus, left in that region because he's leaving. So he gave him half his army, he gave him elephants, and he gave them the ruling power to make decisions to anything that was going to go on in that realm. Anything that happened in Jerusalem or Israel, he had the authoritative power to make a decision. Verse 35, to wit, that he should send an army against him to destroy and root out the strength of Israel and the remnant of Jerusalem, and to take away their memorial from that place, right? So he left that whole situation under Lysias' hand, right? He knew it was a problem, but this was a bigger problem that his wealth and his riches were starting to diminish. So he had to go get some more, but he's going to leave Judas as a problem and a thorn in his side to Lysias to deal with, right? 36, and that he should place strangers in all their quarters and divide their land by lot, right? So now what he's commanding him to do is to now go infiltrate all that region with heathens, right? Bring a bunch of heathens in there. And you may think that that's a light. It's like, okay, we got, Israel living in these quarters, but we're going to bring in some other people just to live amongst them. And usually what that does, and it's kind of covert in thinking that if you have a bunch of heathens that come in your quarters where you live and you dwell, and they bring their own customs and their culture, that becomes a thorn in your side. Because now if you got families that's living there, you got kids and you got people that's now observing what they're doing, you might become interested in that. And what's our biggest downfall is us leaving our customs and our law to go follow what the other nations is doing, right? That's what was started from the beginning. So now if you put that influence within the nation, just to now kind of cause it to divide them up, so that now that everybody's not united, it was a united front that we're all going to do this one thing. But now you got these guys over here honoring Buddha and doing some kind of sacrifice. You got these guys over here doing Islam, and you got these guys over here who keeping Kwanzaa. And then he's like, well, what's this? And what's this? And now it's all sparse and diverse, spread up. Exactly. So this was a tactic to now cause us to be divided in our minds. So now this will even cause Judas to now try to go handle these situations. Right, because now he has to come and try to rid them out from amongst our land. Verse 37. So the king took the half of the forces that remained and departed from Antioch, his royal city, the 147th year. And having passed the river Euphrates, he went through the high countries. Then Lysias chose Ptolemy, the son of Dormanes, and Nicanor and Georgius, mighty men of the king's friends. Right. So of course now you got to go get generals, right? You know, some warriors, some people who were known to come help him out to go fight against Judas and Israel. And with them he sent 40,000 footmen and 7,000 horsemen to go into the land of Judah and destroy it as the king commanded, right? So it's not just like, you know, they're just going to go look for Judas. Sometimes you'll have, you know, you see in certain movies, like, listen, if you give me Judas, everything be all right? Just bring that man here and we won't do nothing to you. We passed that. They passed that part. It's like, listen, they want him to go into Judah and destroy the whole thing. It's like how the Most High told us when you read in Joshua, during the time of Joshua, he said, listen, I want you to go in and destroy the men, the women, the children, the cattle, and burn everything, right? It's not just you just going in and you just getting things. Nah, everything got to go, right? So this is kind of what they're now looking to do to us. Verse 40. So they went forth with all their power and came and pitched by Emmaus in the plain country. And the merchants of the country, hearing the fame of them, took silver and gold very much with servants and came into the camp to buy the children of Israel for slaves, right? So now here it is. Lysias has these generals, these men coming with 40,000 footmen and 7,000 horsemen. And they're like, man, we already know this army. When they go out, they accomplish their mission. So we want to put our bid in, right? We want to get this money up. And I'm going to need like 2 servants. I'm going to need 3. I'm just going to need a little child. So they're putting all in their bid so that they can get slaves from out of the nation after they go and destroy the land. Right? So this is something that, you know, is common when they're dealing with war, that you're going to get slaves. Even in the law for us, the Most High has laws that when we go into a realm or a region and we fight against them, there's laws on now having servants. That's going to be your bondmen or your bondwomen and how you deal with them, right? Laws about if a man sees a heathen woman and how he's attracted to her, laws are what he now has to do to her, right? It's just not something that just now come in and it's like she's just like an Israelite woman. No. Mosiah said, no, there has to be a separation, right? Israel has to always be the predominant, has to be that superior nation when we are dwelling with anybody, especially when we're in our glory. So here it is on the flip side that they're coming with that same mentality. Well, we're going to go get some slaves too. And it just happens to be slaves from the people of Israel. Because we don't think they're going to beat Lysias and his kings, 40,000 men. Nah, it's not going to happen. So they're already thinking that we're going to lose this war. It says, what you say? All right. It says, a power also of Syria and of the land of the Philistines joined themselves unto them. So they're now, amassing, other nations to want to come and help them in this fight, right? It's a good thing, right? It's like, hey, if you come help me, well, that was good. I appreciate that. When something happens to them, right, then they'll come look them out, right? Because they join forces. Right? This was thought of to be like an easy one. Right? All these people here, we're just going to jump in there, about 200 men, go fight. You probably ain't got left a sword, and we be a part of those who went and fought. Right? You start looking at, I think, like history when it talks about like World War I and World War II, the nations who fought and how many people that they came to the fight with, right? You don't kind of know all those numbers until you really go into the detail. But on a high level, to just say, yeah, Italy, this country, that country, like, damn, all these people came. But some countries didn't come with a lot of people. But they're mentioned as far as for those who went and fought and did certain things. But it depends on who had the most forces and who lost the most casualties, right? That's where you start really seeing who did what.
Well, also, some of them send men. Sometimes they send supplies, they send doctors, they send different things. It's not always men that they send.
Mm-hmm.
Something else, but they are on that list. Somebody that contribute to the war.
Gun, exactly. Doctors, like, the medics, right? Some people may not have no medics. These probably the best medics, right? And they probably be, look in favor for that, right? If you're able to mend up somebody and get them patched up and go back out there, you need that, right? Verse 42. Now, when Judas and his brethren saw that miseries were multiplied and that the forces did encamp themselves in their borders, for they knew the king had given commandment to destroy the people and utterly abolish them, right? So he's seeing miseries begin to multiply. Remember, they put the nations up in our land, dividing us up. So now he's just not focusing on what's going on with the army. He's now seeing what's going on within Israel, right? Because now this is another tactic that I got to go deal with, which as you read throughout the Maccabees, he does deal with, right? He does go and send forces throughout certain realm to kill certain individuals who've now switched over, right? So he has to do that. And at the same time, go and fight against the enemy, right? Verse 43, they said one to another, let us restore the decayed estate of our people and let us fight for our people and the sanctuary. Then was the congregation gathered together that they might be ready for battle and that they might pray and ask mercy and compassion, right? So it was now, revitalizing their mind is to kind of get everybody in the right frame of mind that says, we really in bad straits right now. We got to go pray to the Most High and we got to go out here and fight. Right? It's something that we're not dealing with right now. Right? It's not, we can see certain things brewing here and there, and you got certain groups that's coming up and saying they're going to do this. Oh, we take Trump out of office. Yeah, my 850, not this gun, and we're going to fighting, right? We don't really see it to that extent yet. But when that day ever comes, right, and because it's not going to be something that everybody's going to be at all at once prior to your house shot. It's going to be little pockets, right? How are you going to deal with it? Just like right here, this is a pocket in time that these men had to deal with, right? But northern tribes probably had to do something different, or another tribe had to deal with something different. But how are you going to be able to handle the situation or the conflict when it pertains to you, right? You might be up in Toronto, or something different up in Toronto, or something different over in Cali, or something different down in South America or in the Caribbean, right? Everybody may have to deal with their own different thing in righteousness with the support of those who are in earshot of what's going on. It says, verse 45, now Jerusalem lay void as a wilderness. There was none of her children that went in or out. The sanctuary also was trodden down, and aliens, or the nation strangers, the stronghold. The heathen had their habitation in that place, and joy was taken from Jacob, and the pipe with the harp ceased. So this is like Lamentations, the 5th chapter, after the Babylonians came and took us down. It was like there was no more joy. There was no more righteous men. There was nothing left in Jerusalem at that time. This is almost synonymous with that when you read Lamentations 5, right? It says, wherefore the Israelites assembled themselves together and came to Maspha over against Jerusalem. For in Maspha was a place where they prayed aforetime in Israel. Then they fasted that day and put on sackcloth and cast upon their heads and rent their clothes. Right. So just like we read, in the previous verses, when they was going to war, the men had, acknowledged that they had just fasted. So there was a lot of fasting going on, where they were seeing different, situations happening that they needed help from the Most High. Right, so it tells you in, I think Tobit, the 12th chapter, the 8th verse. Where it says prayer is good with fasting and alms and righteousness. Right, so they're fasting a lot. Right, in the midst of war, they're fasting. Right, I mean, you would think that as you're going on, you need as much food and water and everything else to be able to go out there and fight for a whole day, right, or to fight for a few days or something like that. But again, this is something that was known as far as for how we get closer to the. right? How we now, humble ourselves before the Most High that He come to our aid, right?
Bow down.
Minimize, marginalize the flesh to make the spirit more stronger and in tune with the Most High. Right? I think we were talking about this. Was this last week? I can't remember which day it was. If it was the Sabbath or if it was the holy day. We were talking about fasting. I said I seen this boxer who said he fasted for 7 days, right? And sometimes when I hear people fasting, sometimes it's like a liquid fast or they're doing certain things. They're not doing like a total fast, but they're eliminating certain things from their diet. But he was saying that he didn't have anything, no liquid, no food, no nothing for 7 days. And as I was watching him in his interview, he's walking through the store. He looked good, right? He was, alert. He wasn't, sometimes I remember, brothers go fast. You sit there, you're like this, like you in and out of consciousness because but he was, acknowledging that sometimes if you do the fast right, you can be on a higher level spiritually where that doesn't affect you, right? The body doesn't overpower the spirit or the mind to become that. And that's usually what happens. Like, that flesh, starts to wane on you, and then you start to get carnal and you start to think carnal and do carnal, right? Whereas if you just, are able to challenge the spirit to be more on a higher level than the flesh, then who knows what we can do, right? So it was something inspiring to hear him do that for that period of time in order to gain spirituality. That was his objective. His objective wasn't for fight better or to have his diet. But he wanted to become more, because he said he was going through a dark place and he wanted to become more spiritual, mentally clear. He started citing things of Moses and Yahweh. I was like, okay, I'll at least give him credit for where he wanted to go with it. But yeah, that was Tobit 12 and 8. So I read 47 again. It says, then they fasted that day and put on sackcloth and cast ashes upon their heads and rent their clothes and laid open the book of the law wherein the heathen has sought to paint the likeness of their images, right? So, for them to have done that, right, this is kind of goes in to show you as far as for the influence and the control that they had as they dwelt amongst us, the time that they were there, for them to now have gone into our books, our records, and to now start infiltrating what's being seen in here, start painting pictures of our likeness. Now it's a forethought because we have Bibles that have images that doesn't reflect what's being the truth as far as for our ancestry. But back then, when the Greeks first came into power, they really wanted to influence everything. So they took their images and put them in our books, right? And one could look at this on a higher level, that Satan knew that this was something that was going to progress throughout the ages, that even up until now, when you have some of our people look in the book and they see these images, what do they want to do? This book ain't got nothing to do with us. This their book, right? It changes your whole thought process and mind state on the book itself, as if it's even for me. Or if I'm now advocating for this book, my mind is thinking that this is who this is, right? Where I remember, I forget the old TV show. The first time I came up against this was a brother who denounced his race, denounced his skin color, because he saw that Caesar Borgia was Yahushua, and he's like, that's God, that's righteousness. Like, I don't even like this. Like, if he had the opportunity, he started bleaching his skin because he just saw that to be power, right? So when that happened, starting what we're reading here, and they started to put their images in, it would be one of those, things that would just last throughout the generations, right? It lasts throughout hundreds of years that same tactic is being done, and it changes our scope of who we are as a people. And even if we won't even read the book, right? You got people read different books just to be reading books. But this book, it's like, we don't want to really deal with the book. We don't really want to deal with the content because we're people that's been reduced to just looking at pictures, right? Looking at images, right? The images is what attracts me now. If it don't have this in it, then I don't want to deal with it. Who are these people, man? Who is this guy? Who is this little baby with the little wings? It has nothing to do. So you want to leave the book alone. Verse 49, it says, they brought also the priest's garments and the first fruits and the tithes, and the Nazarites they stirred up, who had accomplished their days. Then cried they with a loud voice toward heaven, saying, what shall we do with these, and whither shall we carry them? For thy sanctuary is trodden down and profane, and thy priests are in heaviness. And lo, the heathen are assembled together against us to destroy us. What things they imagine against us, thou knowest. How should we be able to stand against them, except thou, O power, be our help? Right? So this is their prayer that they're coming to the Most High with. They're humbling themselves. They fasted. They've now, amassed or, gathered up those who are righteous, like Ezekiel 9:4, for all the abominations that be done in the midst thereof. Now everybody has that fight. How are we going to overcome? Right? So it says in verse 54, then sounded they with trumpets and cried with a loud voice. Right? So, Numbers 10 and 10, right? When we're going into a war, we're going into a holy day of conflict, we go and we sound the trumpet, we blow the alarm. This is a token between us and the Most High that we do this, right? So it's not one of those things that in the past that when we went into a battle, when we did a feast day, we could not use this because that broke the bond or the covenant that we had with the Most High, right? So they sounded the trumpets and they cried aloud with a loud voice. 55. It says, and after this, Judas ordained captains over the people, even captains over thousands and over hundreds and over 50s and over 10s, right? So we'll see certain camps, right, who have a lot of, big numbers in their camps, whether it be IUIC or whoever it may be, right? They'll follow suit as to what you see here, which they're getting from Exodus, the 18th chapter, right? When you have large camps, you begin to set people over certain affairs, right? Same thing Moses went through when he was dealing with the nation. He was like, how am I going to now hear and deal with all these different people? And his father-in-law told him, listen, man, you gotta set people up. You can't handle this all by yourself. So he began to do that. And now when it comes to, even dealing with armies and military, this is where Esau and other nations got it from, right? Begin to set up, you're a lieutenant, you are E1, you are E3, and you got maybe 4 people underneath you. You got 10 people underneath you. You got 50 people underneath you. And now you start going up into a realm where once you reach a certain level of a captainness, people respect you because you're a captain of however many, or you're a major over however many, right? Because it produces order, right? And then now when you go into that order, like I think, I forget, I want to misquote it, where it says something about you can't speak against the ruler of thy people. Like you can't, bring a charge or an accusation against the ruler of people just like so easily. Right. But I think it's also along with that, right? Within that verse, because it's something about it. Exactly. That's the part, right? Because what that does is it's not that you can't curse the ruler of the people. It's like there's order to certain things, right? There's that like, someone who's on the bottom just can't easily just go up and just now make an accusation about it. It has to go through proper protocol, right? Everything is done in decency and in order, right? So with this is now ordering that camp of right. So that now all I got to do is go speak to that man, right? That man now go speaks to another man. And now he's speaking to those who's underneath him. And now he's speaking to those who I don't got to go out there and start running around handling all of that because now it's done in proper order. So Judas followed suit after, what he saw his predecessors, such as Moses, do before him. Verse 6, but as for such as were building houses or betrothed wives or planting vineyards or were fearful, right? This is what we were talking about a little earlier, right? Those who just got a house, just acquired a house, bought a house, you're trying to fix it up. Those who just got married or betrothed a wife. Those who got land and you're now setting up your land, or you just a person who's just afraid, right? It says those he commanded that they should return every man to his own house according to the law, right? So that's in Deuteronomy, the 20th chapter, starting at the 5th verse. If you fit that situation, you couldn't go out to war, right? Because your mind is going to be elsewhere, right? Your mind is going to be on your newly acquired wife. Your mind is going to be on his house or just that you just built and you ain't set it up the way you want to, right? You out there thinking like, man, I didn't even get to enjoy my house yet, right? Man, what happens if I get killed and I never? So got to go back, right? And the Most High does it in righteousness, right? Because he wants you to enjoy those things, right? It's not that you shouldn't. It's like, okay, no, go deal with your house. Go deal with your land. Go deal with your wife. Go get some courage, right? Whatever that is, you go back for a year and then you go handle that. So that's Deuteronomy, the 20th chapter, actually. When you read that, just write it down. I'm not reading it. Deuteronomy, the 20th chapter, verses 5 to 9. So again, that was Deuteronomy 20th chapter, verses 5 to 9. That's for 56. I know I haven't, there's a lot of precepts that could be written, could be linked up. So if brothers got precepts, you can just call them out. We'll write them down. We don't have to go and read all of them, but we'll just, write them down next to the verses that they go with. Verse 57. It's so the camp removed and pitched upon the south side of Emmaus. And Judah said, arm yourselves and be valiant men, and see that ye be in readiness against, that ye may fight with these nations that are assembled together against us to destroy us and our sanctuary. For it's better for us to die in the battle than to behold the calamities of our people and our sanctuaries. Nevertheless, as the will of God is in heaven, so let him do. Right? So it'd be better for you to be in the fight than be on the outside watching. Right? Talking about what you've seen. Right? It's like, me growing up, how I did is like somebody got into a fight. You from your area, and from your area, you represent your area. You go out somewhere, and it was like, yeah, it was at the skating rink, and these guys from such and such block, they was there, and they start popping off. And he's popping off, and brothers got to fighting. They was fighting, and this, that, and the third, and you come back to the block, and you start telling what happened. They was like, where? What you do? What you do? Yo, I was on the side. You was on the side, right? And then it's like, oh, man, you're not respected, right? If everybody that you with was in the fight and you now just talking about what was going on and you wasn't participating, then it's like, nah, man, you're not well respected. Yeah, right.
He was talking about the civil rights. Back that time, he went there late. Raincoat on. People looking at him drenched like, really?
He's telling the story like he was doing something. He's telling the story like he participated in it.
Right.
And his kids was like, no, you ain't tell the real story, Dad.
Right. But in this case, these men, what Judas and them were doing, this was all for righteousness, right? This doesn't mean that in any situation that goes on, because you got certain conflicts or certain schisms and skirmishes that happen, that's just carnal and wicked as I don't know what, right? That you don't need to involve yourself in because it's not something that the Lord would advocate for. You got these guys over here talking about he done stole my weed and he done did this, so we're about to go handle these guys, and you just there, and now they expect you to jump into the conflict. Now you involved in something that's all wicked, right? So you not only have you brought yourself involved in it, but now you're representing something that's righteous. Now that is a part of that, right? We seen what happened in Jersey City just a couple weeks ago, where they just try to throw that name, and then now everybody's thinking like, oh yeah, that's how the Israelites see. Look, they going about. No, that's not what. Right? And it was good. I think I saw what's his name, Yohana. Yohana was on the news on Philly News went and interviewed him. I don't know if it was Philly News or up in Jersey City. Like it could have been both. But he went on mainstream news and was like, nah, they sat down with him to do an interview. And he was like, nah, we don't do anything with guns. And we are a nonviolent organization. We don't advocate for that. If anybody does that, they're not a part of this. They're not a part. So that was good to see because that's the narrative that they was trying to portray. Because, I'm pretty sure a lot of us that was in here probably got calls and be like, yo, did you see what was going on? Was he with you? What's going on? Right? You're like, nah. Yeah, I got calls from everywhere. Everybody was like, no, man, I just know y'all not really about that, but you know those guys? I was like, I don't know who they were, and I don't even know if they're a part of any organization. They just said they were affiliated, right? So you don't want to put yourself in a situation that doesn't represent a righteous battle or a righteous cause, right? Certain things we'll do that for.
I don't think even part of it. I think they said he attended one of the school or something.
Yeah, I think they just said on one when I saw this, it was affiliated, right? And you can use that word loosely as to say, what does that mean? He could have probably went to, 5 years ago, he probably went to a school for 2 days, and then they was like, listen, this is not for you, right? And he's gone, and he probably, I think they looked on his social media page, and he probably was kind of, saying that he was there or whatever it was that they now attached. If you follow, how the departments operate, they got to find something, right? It has to stick somewhere or their job is not being done, right? So we got to try to put the blame on someone or something and then move forward. We got to have a headline, right? So chapter 4, verse 1, it says, then took Georgius 5,000 footmen and 1,000 of the best horsemen and removed the camp by night, right? So now Lysias is now, giving charge to Georgius to go out there and go and try to take down Judea with Judas and the rest of his army, right? 5,000 footmen and the best horsemen that he has. Not the 4, but the best ones that they had, 1,000 of them. To the end, he might rush in upon the camp of the Jews and smite them suddenly. And the men of the fortress were his guides, right? So when it talks about the men of the fortress were his guides, because they had the nations, established within our areas, right? Within Judea and different certain specific areas. So these men knew, the best places to go, what time to go, how to approach, and, how many people over here. So they went and now were being the ones who were ushering them in to the conflict. Verse 3, now when Judas heard thereof, he himself removed, and the valiant men with him, that he might smite the king's army, which was at Emmaus, while as yet the forces were dispersed from the camp, right? So now it's a lot of tactics going on, right? He's hearing about what they're trying to do, and now he's like, okay, I want to go and try to get this thing over here. So I'm going to start dividing up my forces to be able to handle certain conflicts, because he's dealing with what was going on in Emmaus. He's dealing with a lot of things that's going on, right? So he has to be, like a real skilled general to kind of lay things out. Like, what is that in Game of Thrones with, what's her name? Daenerys. She was looking at the whole realm of, this is what's going over here. This is what's going over here. This is what's going over here. How are we going to fight there, but also start to get the upper hand over there? You got to think about everything, right? That's why I used to like, and I was thinking about this past week. I'm gonna try to, I'm gonna bring one of my boards here, because we used to do this when we was up in Jersey. We used to play chess all the time, right? On the feast days and everything, we used to play chess. And chess is just those tactics. Whereas, you're doing things over here, but you setting up 3 and 4 moves for something different. It starts to train your mind about not only focusing on one thing. You're thinking about protecting this, but I'm sacrificing this, and I'm now, going to move here. I'm thinking what he's going to do 2 and 3 moves ahead, right? And then put that into action. So it's a good skill game to just get the mind thinking. But this is something in real life that Judas has to do, right? Or any person that's in a conflict that's fighting multiple wars, they would have to consider. So again, it says in verse 3, now when Judas heard thereof, he himself removed, and the valiant men with him, that he might smite the king's army, which was at Emmaus, while as yet the forces were dispersed from the camp. In the mean season came Georgius by night into the camp of Judas, And when he had found no man there, he sought them in the mountains. For said he, these fellows flee from us, right? So he's thinking that, they're on the run. Whereas Judas already knew about what their tactics were, and he just left to go fight another conflict. But now this is getting into the mean season or into the winter season, where it's going to be, a little bit more difficult to come fight a war. In the summer season, spring, much easier, right? You got the weather. You don't have to worry about the terrain and snow and 20 below degrees weather where it's cold and most folks gotta get fires. You don't have to worry about those things in the other season. In the mean season, a little bit more difficult, right? So this is what this is going into. Now remember, what we're describing, we're reading about is around this time right now, right? And right now we're in the end of December, right? So it's in the winter season. It's in, a certain region where, I remember growing up, we used to have snow that came up like 2 feet, right? So imagine you about to go to war and you got 2 feet of snow in front of you, right? I got to shovel out for about a good hour. Imagine you trying to go through all this and you got all this around you, right? And not knowing that they probably even use this to their advantage. So sometimes folks don't even want to go and fight a war. You look at America's wars, they don't normally like fighting in the winter season. A hand-to-hand combat actual war. Sure, they can fly over and do all this with their jets and helicopters, but a hand-to-hand combat, they wouldn't want to do that, right? So it says, verse 6, but as soon as it was day, Judas showed himself in the plain with 3,000 men who nevertheless had neither armor nor swords to their minds, right? So, appointed time, Judas now got everybody in formation and now showed himself in the plain, right? And when it says, who nevertheless had neither armor nor swords to their minds, it's not saying that they didn't have armor or swords. It means that they didn't rely on them, right? Because as we're going to read down, they had swords. They went to foot with swords. They just didn't rely on the sword. They didn't rely on the armor that they had that was going to win them the battle, whereas their enemies did, right? Because sometimes when you have, a great force of weapons and animals and things of that nature, you don't think that anything can defeat you because of what you have, right? You got a Glock 9. This guy got a pea shooter. Man, I got this, but I don't care about my pea shooter. I got the angel right there. You don't see the angel right there. Or you don't see this spirit that the Most High is about to put on me, where I can be like Neo and dodge the bullets. You don't know what can happen, right? So it goes to show how much time and effort we put into elevating the spiritual mind to draw closer to the Most High, to build trust and confidence before we go out to any conflict.
Right? Touch on that there, because like you said, they still use that's the key. Function when you say spiritually minded. Utilize what you have physically to the utmost. Right? Still operate tactically. And when you exercise all that to the best of your ability, that's when you give the rest to the Most High to allow it to succeed. As opposed to, it's not that saying, oh, Most High got it.
Mm-hmm.
Only do that if you really literally have nothing.
Right.
Sometimes that can get misconstrued. It's like, oh, you're trying to use tactics, you don't trust the Lord. It's like, no, still use the things the Most High gave you, carnally. And bless it going forward. There's a scripture in Ecclesiastes. And always be really clear forever. Because what can happen is you can make certain decisions, right? Not doing it in that sequence. Mad at the Most High, like the Most High, how come this didn't work out? He feels some kind of way against him. So Ecclesiasticus 37 and 13. Ecclesiastes 37:13, it says, sometime want or able, tell him more than he. And above all this, pray to the Most High, that he will direct thy way in truth. And it says in 16, the reason go before enterprise and counsel for every action. So you still gotta do the due diligence of asking the right questions, right? To get as much information as possible. Then make the choice, and then ask the Most High, bless the choice. And you have a clean conscience afterwards, because you gave it your best. 13 to 16.
Okay. You can write down 2 Maccabees 8:18. And also 1 Samuel's 17:45. So again, that was 2 Maccabees 8:18 and 1 Samuel's 17:45, which links with verse 6. With verse 6 in chapter 4, is, as far as for putting your trust in the Most High, not so much in the carnal weapons.
And we touched on it last night when we were having a conversation. It's like when David was about to fight Goliath.
Mm-hmm.
Before he even got into the battle, he already knew that he defeated him. Right? Because from his youth, he already been practicing. And also he's been working the principle of the Most High, working the law of the Most High, and believing the Most High. When Saul was afraid, but he had that faith in the Most High that he knew before he even got into the fight that he was gonna defeat Goliath. But people who were on the outside looking in, they didn't understand his spirit, right? How he believed in the Most High, and he was gonna get, even when they try to put the armor on him, he said, "Man, get this out. I don't even need this." Because he had already confirmed in his mind with following the Most High, the battle was already done.
That verse in Samuel 17:45, in his conversation with Goliath, he's like, "Yeah, you put your trust in these things, but I'm coming in the name of the Most High. I'm coming in the name of the Lord of Hosts." Right? That's who I'm fighting for. Who's going to be fighting for me?
Right.
So, once you have that confidence and that trust, the Most High sees it. Right? It's all about your intentions and your willpower and how you're going to deal with a situation or circumstance, or how much the Most High is going to deal with you. Sometimes you got to build it up. And if you need to be at level 9 and you just at level 6 and you ain't there yet, Most High is like, all right, you need to get to level 9 first. You got to work on it. So you got to fall. I want to see if you're going to leave or if you're going to work on it. Right? And then now it's like, all right, I didn't get that one. I kind of was embarrassed, so I fell flat on my face. But now I'm still reading. I'm still seeing that this is what happened with Samuel. And this is what happened with this person. All right, now I'm increasing to level 8. And now you get that next tribulation or trial, and it pushes you to the 9. And then the Most High is like, all right, boom, now I'm gonna show you how it works. And then I give you the experience and the vote of confidence that you can do it again.
Right. That example is perfect as far as work on what you have at any given moment to the best of your ability. In that same story, what did he say? He said, I can't grade these, I haven't proven. So it's like he wasn't even familiar with how to use the armor and sword like that.
Mm-hmm.
So he used what he was familiar with at that given point.
Mm-hmm.
Him being a shepherd, that being his background. Now, later on, he would have armor and swords and all that.
Right.
But at that time, he had to say, okay, I gotta work with what I have to make this happen, and then have the Most High take care of the rest that he made.
Right. John, read the scripture on that.
Okay.
It's 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 11 to 14. It's like you always got to work with what you have. Instead of looking for something you don't have, but what you have, you're skillful in it. All you need is work with what you have, and then the rest, you got to have faith in the Lord.
Oh, you said 1 Timothy?
Yeah, 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 11. I'll read that. It says, but I'll start from verse 12 because that's pretty much what I need.
Okay.
It says, fight the good fight of faith. So the ultimate fight is the fight of faith. And everything we gonna do. Right? The faith part, getting ourselves right, the mindset right, then anything that we have, we can make good use of it. Right? Because it's not what you're gonna use, it's more so what you have inside of you, the faith, the trust that you have in the Most High. Fight the good fight of faith, lay hold on eternal life, whereunto thou art also called, and has professed a good profession before many witnesses. It says, I give thee charge in the sight of God, who quickeneth all things, and before Christ Yahushua, who before Pontius Pilate witnessed a good confession, that thou keep this commandment without spot, unrebukable, until the appearing of our Lord Yahushua Mashiach. So the key here is the commandments. Follow the Most High, because everything works through the commandments of the Most High. So and I can see that with Judas, with everything that he's doing, with all the gifts that he has, to know how to fight the enemy. But all in all, he was doing for one purpose, not for himself, to establish justice, which is what Yahushua is about. It's pretty much exemplify Yahushua through his fighting. So it's about fighting the wrong to establish the right, which was the key purpose of his fighting.
Stopped at 14. All right, so let's go back. We have verse. Where did I leave off at? Verse 7 now. It says, and they saw the camp of the heathen, that it was strong and well harnessed, and compassed round about with horsemen, and these were expert of war. Then said Judah to the men that were with him, fear ye not their multitude, neither be ye afraid of their assault. Remember how our fathers were delivered in the Red Sea when Pharaoh pursued them with an army. Now therefore, let us cry unto heaven, if peradventure the Lord would have mercy upon us, and remember the covenant of our fathers, and destroy this host before our face this day. So, usually, a lot of different righteous men are, things written aforetime is for our learning. So they'll revert to time before when the Most High delivered us when we were in the same situation, right? So if we believed on things and we believe in the scriptures and the remembrance of it, we'll react those same things, same trust in the Lord that he won't let us fall to our enemies in that same fashion, right? So it happens, different Old Testament, Apocrypha, New Testament, they always reverted back to remind us of what our ancestors went through and how the Lord delivered us.
It's just like, it's just to reassure us the consistency of the law.
Mm-hmm.
The Most High. Like you keep it, no matter when, no matter where you are, or what season, what time, it always works.
Mm-hmm.
As long as we follow it, we keep going back. That's why I keep going back. Remember, Abraham, he was a friend of the Most High, and his faith accounted for. So always going back just to show us the Most High and his law is consistent.
Right. It says that so all the heathen may know that there is one who delivereth and saveth Israel. Then the strangers lifted up their eyes and saw the coming over against them. Wherefore they went out of the camp to battle, but they that were with Judas sounded their trumpets, right? So then when the enemies now seeing us come out and the planes that come to battle, they're ready to come fight. But remember in Numbers 10 and 10, which was in the law, that before we go to war, we got to blow up the ram's horn, right? As a token in the covenant between us and the Most High that he'll fight for us, that he'll come and help and defend us, right? If we didn't do that, it's like, say again? Okay. If we didn't do that, then now we've broken from the commandment, right? It's like, on a carnal level, if somebody said, look, knock 2 times, and if you knock, I hear you knock 2 times, then I'm gonna come in there and save the day. But you in the doggone conflict and you don't knock 2 times. I told you knock 2 times. I come fight. But you didn't do it. So it's the same thing. If we don't do what the Lord requires of us to do, then how do we expect him to come help us? Right? So this is what they did in the midst of the war. Right? They're sounding the trumpets. Right? It's kind of another one of those tactics that we see that Esau uses also coming from the scriptures, because when they're about to go to war, they'll blow that trumpet, right, to sound the alarm to get everybody ready to go fight the battle, right? But that's a commandment that was given to Israel for us when we was going to war, right? They just took it for their own purposes. Yeah. So it says in 14, so they joined battle, and the heathen, being discomfited, fled into the plain, right? So Judas's track record is still intact, right? Met with them, and then as soon as they get into the battle, it's like, and now they breaking out, and they running, right? They running, right? So Georges didn't have enough. Verse 15, howbeit all the hindmost of them were slain with the sword, for they pursued them unto Gazera, and unto the plains of Idumea, and Azatus, and Jamnia, so that there were slain of them upon 3,000 men, right? So the hindmost of them. So those who was at the rear, they was getting it, right? If you was in the front, as they say, I ain't got to be the fastest, but I just got to be faster than you. So if you in the front, you good. But the hindmost, they getting it, man. They getting chopped down, and they running into different regions. Going to Gazera, going into Idumea, going into Jamnia. They all don't follow me. Go your own way. Go your own way. Don't follow me. Yeah, exactly.
Persians in the back, cry forward. Persians in the front, cry back. Remember the guy got stabbed? He started running away from them. They were right next to him.
Verse 16, it says, this done, Judas returned again with his host from pursuing them, and said to the people, be not greedy of the spoils, inasmuch as there is a battle before us, right? So now they're going to them, and they now have chased them out into another region. They got camps that's still left behind, right? And in their camps, they have all their spoils. We just read how King Antiochus used to like to pay his subjects before they go to war. And they usually take that with them, right? They take that as their treasury because they don't know where they need to go the next time. So as they're now going, they're seeing what was left behind. And, Israel is like, oh man, we about to go start dividing up the spoil. But Judas is like, nah, this is not the time. We still got other battles. We got to go and make sure that is taken care of first before we start dealing with this. Right? We'll deal with this when the time presents itself. We still have other matters. Don't touch that right now. All right. Verse 18. So like whoever just dialed in, if you could go on mute, got some feedback on your line. Verse 18. And Gorgias and his hosts are here by us in the mountain. But stand ye now against our enemies and overcome them. And after this, ye may boldly take the spoils, right? So we still got some enemies that's sitting up in the mountains that's probably can come down on us at any point in time. Deal with them, and then once we deal with them, then we can come back and resume dividing the spoils, right? Verse 19, and as Judas was yet speaking these words, there appeared a part of them looking out of the mountains. So as he's talking, they step out, right? Like to see what's going on. Like, what are they going to do? Are they going to come after us? Or we're going to go against them? What? Verse 20, who when they perceived that the Jews had put their host to flight and were burning the tents, for the smoke that was seen declared what was done. When therefore they perceived these things, they were so afraid. And seeing also the host of Judas in the plain, ready to fight, they fled everyone into the land of the strangers. Right? So, usually the whole camp, the whole host doesn't always just go out and fight. You send a section of the force first, right? And you send another section. So everyone didn't go. You still had some that remained in the mountain. So after time passed, they now went to go see what was going on for the camp, and they see the tents burning, and they seeing all their whole forces there. It's not good. This is not good,
What did
man.
they do? Clear up in the mountain.
It's none of, they left. They fled. They didn't stay. They left. They bounced, right? Verse 23. Then Judas returned to spoil the tents with not much gold and silver and blue silk and purple of the sea and great riches, right? So these are hot commodities, right? So some of them probably was given to them from the king, and others they amassed from their own conquests in certain wars, right? Gold and silver, right? The silk, easy to understand as far as for the fabric that was used for certain, apparel, and then that purple of the sea, which is that dye that was used to now create the different clothing. That was hard, and it's not easy to get, right? I think we was going into when we was reading last Friday night. I think it was Friday night. We was going to Ezekiel. It was Ezekiel 38 or one of those chapters when it talks about King of Tyrus, right? And when you go into the history behind them, they were a people who were able to merchandise and cultivate this purple of the sea and the different dyes that come from out of the waters, right? So they had a monopoly, and a lot of people came to them for that. So, but when you go into the history, it tells you that they were a prideful people. So that's kind of where the Most High used them, that name, to be associated with another people, which was Esau at the time. But yeah.
They emulate the Sodom and Gomorrah, Egypt, Mizraim, Babylonians, Cush, Tyrians, Zidonians.
Yeah.
They love to worship Hamites.
Yeah. So got a lot of good spoils from this little war here, right? 24. It says, and after this they went home and sung a song of thanksgiving and praised the Lord in heaven, because it is good, because his mercy endureth forever. Like you read in Psalms 136, right? His mercy endureth forever. So this is they sang a song of thanksgiving, right? Because the Most High had given them the battle, right? He'd given them the conquest. And so it's something that they had done themselves without the hand of the Most High. So when you look at Thanksgiving, right? When you look in the traditional terms of Thanksgiving, this is the same thing that was done for the nations, right? For the heathen, right? They were given the land. They were given the natives of the land. They were given a lot of things in their minds by those that power that helped or aided them, right? So in the same context of this, we had a song, we had a feast, we did all that in honor of the Most High who had given us the battle of the conquest. What did we do? We just went and slaughtered these different nations, right? And then went and got their spoils, right? Got gold and silver. That's what the same thing that they did to our ancestors when they came over here, right? They got the land, the gold, the spoils, the pearls, all of those different things, the land, to be able to get all the resources that come from the land, that was given to them. So sometimes it kind of works on opposite sides, right? When we're doing good, these things are good for us. But when we're not doing good, then the Most High says, all right, I'll bring you down and bring them up, and they're going to get those same blessings, right? But just on in wickedness.
Real quick, because sometimes you get to argue, people say, that's kind of hypocritical. You're talking about, you're about the people of God in Israel. Isn't Joshua shed blood? This, that, and the third, right? Is it justified, just to shed blood? But he had to make the distinction, like, we went to war, but it was to establish righteousness as opposed to other nations. They do it to establish their false God. That's why, like Kamba always talks about rise and fall of empires. They never stay in power too long because they're not doing righteousness.
Mm-hmm.
And, this is a Deuteronomy 9. I just read this not too long ago on the Sabbath. Deuteronomy chapter 9, verses 1 and 6. Because of time, right?
Yeah, if you could probably get the main verse.
Right. So, yeah. I'll start with 4, even though the whole thing's 1 through 6. Speak not thou in thine heart after that the Lord thy God has cast them out from before thee. So Moses talking to us, Israel, about the Canaanites that are in the land of Canaan, especially the ones that are real tall and big, like the Anakim. They were kind of like a Goliath type figure, physically, very imposing. Speak not thou in thine heart that the Lord thy God cast him from before thee, saying, for my righteousness the Lord hath brought me in to possess this land. But thou, rather, but for the wickedness of these nations, the Lord will drive them out from before thee. Not for thy righteousness, or for the uprightness of thine heart, dost thou go to possess their land. But for the wickedness of those nations, the Lord thy God doth drive them out from before thee, and that he may perform the word which the Lord sware unto thy fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Understand therefore that the Lord thy God giveth thee not this land, this good land, to possess it for thy righteousness, but thou art a stiff-necked people. At the level set with us first, saying, I'm a man of my word. I made a promise to your ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Later on tells you, what if you guys keep my laws and my statutes? You'll abide here forever. Nobody will be able to come against you. They won't stand a chance. But yeah, just I like to use that. You get that kind of argument. People say, shed blood, warfare is warfare. How come it's okay for Joshua does it? Someone else does it, it's evil.
So back in First Maccabees chapter 4, 25. So thus Israel had a great deliverance that day, right? It was the occasion, and I'm pretty sure that they partied, they feasted, they sang songs, did a lot on that day once the battle was over. Verse 26. Now all the strangers that had escaped came and told Esaias what had happened, who, when he had heard thereof, was confounded and discouraged, because neither such thing as he would have done unto Israel, nor such things as the king commanded him were come to pass. So now he's confused. He didn't think that George was going to lose this battle with the best horsemen and, 5,000 men, and now they've gone and all been killed, and some of them have fled into different regions. They don't know where they're at. Verse 28. The next year, therefore, following, Lysias gathered together 70,000 choice men of foot and 5,000 horsemen that he might subdue them, right? So now a few months later, he's coming back with a bigger and stronger army than what he had before, right? Because remember, he was left in charge to destroy them, and nothing has been accomplished yet. As a matter of fact, he's losing his army, right, that he was given to him. So now he's up in the ante. Verse 29. So they came into Idumea and pitched their tents at Bethsura, and Judas met them with 10,000 men. And when he saw that the mighty army, he prayed and said, Blessed art thou, O Savior of Israel, who didst quell the violence of the mighty man by the hand of thy servant David, and gavest a host of strangers into the hands of Jonathan, the son of Saul, and his armor bearer. Right? So now he's going into the same situation that happened with King David. At the time, he wasn't a king, but he was that young one who came to stand up to defend Israel. You read in 1 Samuel, the 14th chapter, right? He was now taking on that position of, I'm going to be the one to defend by the hand of the Most High. I'm going to trust in the Lord, and he's going to do this. So this is what Judas is doing, right? He's remembering what the Lord did for David. He's asking if the Most High can do the same thing for him at that moment. Verse 31.
Link also to that verse, 1 Samuel 14, verses 13 to 14. That deal with the victory that Jonathan got in his armor bearer, which was a great feat too, because it was only the two of them against like a camp of Philistines. I was with Jonathan in that fight too.
Mm-hmm.
1 Samuel 14, verse 13.
Verse 31. It says, shut up this army in the hand of thy people Israel, and let them be confounded in their power and horsemen. Make them to be of no courage, and cause the boldness of their strength to fall away. Let them quake at their destruction. Cast them down with the sword of them that love them. So Lord, cast them down with the sword of them that love thee. And let all those that know thy name praise thee with thanksgiving. Right? So again, it's another quick prayer to the Lord to remember us and to allow Israel to defeat our enemies. And then afterwards, we can join in prayer and praise to the Lord. Verse 34. So they joined battle, and there were slain of the host of Lysias about 5,000 men. Even before them were they slain. Right? So now they came with, way more men before, and 5,000 is fallen. Right? You don't hear about any men dying that's with Judas's camp. Right? These is all the enemy. So now you start seeing 100, 200, 300, 500, 1,000, 2,000. You're like, man, right? Something got to give. Verse 35. Now when Lysias saw his army put to flight and the manliness of Judas's soldiers and how they were ready either to live or die valiantly, he went into Antiochia and gathered together a company of strangers, and having made his army greater than it was, he purposed to come again into Judea. So he was like, all right, I got to regroup. Right? I just seen him destroy 5,000 men, and they wilding. Like these guys they don't care, right? So now I got to go get some more people. So he left and said, all right, we're going to retreat. I'm going to get some more people and then come back again to fight. That's what the intentions are. It says 36, then said Judas and his brethren, behold, our enemies are discomfited. Let us go up to cleanse and dedicate the sanctuary. So while they're trying to regroup and they fleeing and going to these other areas to get more men, we're going to take this time to come now and rededicate the altar, right? Re-cleanse the sanctuary. Because remember last week when we read this, how they went into the temple and defiled it, right? Set up the altar of abominations on top of our altar, sacrificing swine's flesh and all other kinds of abominable animals on the altar in the temple, right? So now we need to go in there and clean it up. We can't leave it like that, right? We can't leave the temple unclean, right? So it says in verse 37, upon this, all the hosts assembled themselves together and went up into Mount Sion. And when they saw the sanctuary desolate and the altar profane and the gates burned up and shrubs growing in the courts as in a forest or in one of the mountains, and the priest's chambers pulled down, rent their clothes and made a great lamentation and cast ashes upon their heads. So something that was so glorious to look upon, now and all the time while we dealing with these wars and these conflicts, the nations is in there destroying it, defiling it, burning certain sections of the temple. Now no one is tending to, the courts, and no one is tending to what's going on. And, sometimes you go certain places, you start seeing grass growing up from the concrete and everything. You're like, dang, man, this look bad, right? So this is what they're seeing. And this is supposed to represent the most glorious temple in all the world. Look like something that's coming out of, down the block somewhere, across the street in that little alley over there. So they was, of course, I know they had to be disgusted. I could imagine what it looked like when they went into the temple and what they probably saw on the altar, right? And how they were just sacrificing. They probably wasn't clean, and they probably wasn't cleaning things up. They probably just left stuff all out, right? So they probably was utterly upset. So it says in verse 39, they rent their clothes and made great lamentation and ashes upon their heads. So when it says great lamentations, you're reading other times, like these men was crying, like they was upset at what they were seeing. Right? They couldn't believe that it had come to this, and that now their eyes are beholding, the state or the decay of Israel.
One quick scripture I want to pull on Judas praying to the Most High to give the bottle.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's Job 35 and 13.
Job 35:13.
Job chapter 35, verse 13. It says, surely God will not hear vanity, neither will the Almighty regard it. It's like we've been talking about Judas in his conscience. Know that he kept the law. He tried to do everything according to the Most High, but he's gonna come to a point where when you face a fight face to face, you still gotta talk to the Most High, even though you know you've been keeping the law. You can't say, "Oh, I've been keeping the law. I'm gonna see if the Most High gonna, deliver me." The thing is, you still gotta talk to the Most High, have a communication with the Most High while in the midst of the fight, because sometimes our mind can get tricked, say, "Oh man, I'm gonna fight this fight right now," and you're scared. But as opposed to being scared, you gotta talk to the Most High and pray to the Most High and have a communication with the Most High. So, and we know that the Most High don't hear vanity, and prior to us praying to the Most High, we gotta make sure that we've been in the right.
Right, because I mean, even as you read in the Maccabees, Judas, he won a lot of wars valiantly, but ultimately he died in the war too. Right. Then his brother that came after him, Jonathan, he took the realms and he took the helm, and he was good for a moment too. But then he slipped and he died in the war, in the conflict too. So you can't take it for granted that every time you go into the situation that you're just going to come out unscathed. Right. I think it was Judas's that he wanted to defend the people. He wanted to defend the temple. He wanted to defend the nation. And he's praying that the Lord can use him to do that at that moment. Right. It's not usually it's being selfless. Sometimes you're not just doing it for you. It's not about, just me. I can go out there and try to fight this fight for everyone else if it be the Lord's will. Right. Sometimes it may not be the Lord's will that you win this war because he's setting something else up. Jonathan needed to come in. Right. Then Simon needed to come in. Right. So you gotta, give up your spot, which may cause your life.
And that's the beauty of serving the Most High. It's like when you serve the Most High, do it in all righteousness. Anything that happens is good. If you die in a battle, it's good because you fight for the kingdom. Granted, you lose your flesh, but your spirit is secure.
Yeah.
So to always think about you always gonna come out.
Yeah, and and I wanted to see, because we're reading this now. When you read certain men, they was willing to die, right? And this is like, it's not just going out their doors and they're just going out their doors thinking that they're ready to die for something, right? But if you've been in a situation, when that comes and it's needed for you to be in that mind state, when your adrenaline is running, then you're in that mode, right? Sometimes you get so angry or you're so passionate about something, nothing else matters, right? I don't care. I've seen people, where their situation, their adrenaline and their emotions is running so high that what's before them, they disregard. Person can have a knife or a gun. I don't care. I'm just going to die today for how I'm standing on my conviction. So it's the same thing now. These men are standing on their conviction with the Most High. Their adrenaline is running. The Spirit is working with them. So death in that regard, if it happens that I lose my life today, I lose my life today. Because what I'm standing for, what I believe, what's in my mind right now, nothing else matters. Right? It's like sometimes we talk about, you got kids like, somebody go and violate your kids. Somebody go, God forbid, somebody go rape my daughter. Woo! What I would do, right? It's like that somebody say, I want to get locked up just to be in a cell with that man. I'm gonna go commit a crime so I could be in there with him, because they're not gonna let me do anything to him because they're protecting him. But I'm going to jail because I'm gonna put my hands on him, right? Yeah, and I ain't gonna because now you're so filled with passion and emotion that nothing else matters, right? So when you get to that point, then you'll understand this in righteousness, right? So, and
one more thing, it's like when you look at it another way. When you're in the midst of the fight, it's easy to get, into it. But prior to the fight, you got to know what you're gonna go fight for, because you might lose your life, but the end goal is you have the vision of the kingdom, and that's what Joe had. When everything was happening to him, he was like, "Hey, that's big. If anything happened here, the Most High has it." Where because he had a vision of the kingdom, so anything that happened for him, so if the kings allow it, that's fine.
Right. Done. So we're at verse 40. It says, and fell down flat to the ground upon their faces and blew an alarm with the trumpets and cried toward heaven, right? So now this is another sounding of the trumpet, right? This is not the go to war sound. This is something solemn that just happened, right? It's the same thing that Esau does when someone dies, right? They blow the trumpet a little bit different, and everybody knows what that means, right? So this is the same thing. Half mast, right? They do that sounding of the alarm. Verse 41, then Judas appointed certain men to fight against those that were in the fortress until he had cleansed the sanctuary, right? So the battle never stops, right? So now they're dealing with the sanctuary and it being cleansed, right? So they can now be able to operate in doing the sacrifices and things again before the Most High, right? That's his whole objective, is to now put righteous priests back in the temple to be able to do the order of the temple with the priests. It says, so he chose priests of blameless conversation, such as had pleasure in the law, who cleansed the sanctuary and bare out the defiled stones into an unclean place. And when, as they consulted what to do with the altar of burnt offerings, which was profane, they thought it best to pull it down, lest it should be a reproach to them, because the heathen had defiled it. Wherefore they pulled it down and laid up the stones in the mountain of the temple in a convenient place, until there should come a prophet to show what should be done with them, right? So the best thing to do is get rid of these old stones for the altar and then bring in new ones. But I don't know what to do with these stones yet, right? Sometimes you may not have every answer, right? I think the scripture says if you don't have the answer, lay your hand over your mouth, right? You don't always have to have the right answer or have an answer. He said, I'm going to wait until someone else comes with wisdom to say what to do with these stones, but we're going to get new ones, right, to cleanse. That's going to be clean. Verse 47. It says, then they took whole stones according to the law and built a new altar according to the former, right? So you read in Exodus 20 and 25. Right, if you don't have it already, precept in your apocryphal, in your notes, Exodus 20:25, Deuteronomy 27 and 5, and Joshua 8:32 to 5. Deuteronomy 27 and 5. And then Joshua chapter 8, verses 32 to 35. This all links up with the law about whole stone and how you're not supposed to bring a stone to chisel or do any mark. It has to be taken as is, right? Verse 48, and made up the sanctuary and the things that were within the temple and the hollow courts. They made also new holy vessels, and into the temple they brought the candlestick and the altar of burnt offering and of incense and the table. And upon the altar they burnt incense, and the lamps that were upon the candlesticks they lighted, that they might give light in the temple. Furthermore, they set the loaves upon the table and spread out the veils and finished all the works which they had begun to make, right? So everything that was now according to the law that the Most High gave to Moses to now have done in the temple, they're redoing it. New holy vessels, right? New thing, all the new candlesticks to make sure that everything is now not profane, cleansed, because they didn't want to have that become a thorn or a reproach to Israel, right? Let's just start anew and let's rededicate everything in here to the Lord.
The good thing provided is, and that's a good tradition, right? That's a good tradition, and it pretty much reminds us of what we did in the past. And they did not reinvent the wheel; they reestablished the truth, the original way, the way, except that they decked it out.
Right.
So they did not make up new things.
Right. Such as a new menorah.
Right.
Right. Because as we're reading here, they were able to have resources to get the thing, because the story that they get, I think, from the Josephus is that they only had enough oil to burn in the candlestick for one day, and it lasted for these days. So they made a new menorah in honor of that, to now symbolize on that day that we now had oil burning. The Lord was miraculously allowing that oil that usually only burns for one day, it burned for these days, right? But like how we're reading here, everything was made according to how it was in the law, right? So the candlestick had to be constructed the same way it was described by the Most High to Moses in Exodus, right? He wouldn't have deviated from that, right? But that's kind of what this story that they're getting from the Josephus says. And I say that and the thing about the Josephus, right? And it's used in the same context as other books, right? Because you'll have the Josephus and you'll have other reference books that speak about things that come from the storylines that's in the Bible, right? Because there's other things that's in the Josephus that kind of supports what's in the Bible, but then they have bones in it. That's things it's not the same thing that's in the scriptures. So when we use these other reference materials, you got to be careful in giving it that much weight, right? So sometimes, like, even in our arsenals, we'll have like Babylon and Timbuktu, right? Babylon and Timbuktu has some good history in there that supports some of the things that we see in the scriptures. But there's other sections in Babylon and Timbuktu that has bones in it, right? So if you now hang your head on saying, yeah, we got these books that all go and coincide with the Bible, and then people start reading these books because you're kind of advising them or you're guiding them to it, and they start reading these books and taking it as gospel, they're going to start reading these other sections that's going to confuse them and stunt their growth, right? So you just got to be careful and not putting it on the same level. That's why it says in Isaiah 34:16, none shall want her mate. This stands alone. So I didn't need the Josephus to give me any of that history. It's right here. It's right here in the 1611 that gives me the breakdown about that. Never spoke about coming up with a new menorah, right? It just, even just the logic behind it would now give credence to saying that they are now breaking the commandment. They're going against the commandment, right? To change the Sabbath day. Sabbath day is not the seventh day. Now it's the first day. You're going against what was established already. And then in the New Testament, Christ lets us know the things that was written in the law, he didn't come to destroy that. Right? None of that has to be touched in that regard. So all those things still remain intact, right? With just smidgen of upgrade. So now back in 52. Now on the 5th and 20th day of the 9th month, which is called the month Caslu or Kislev, in the 148th year, rose up betimes in the morning and offered sacrifice according to the law upon the new altar of burnt offerings, which they had made, right? So they're offering the morning and the evening as sacrifices like you read in Exodus, right? Everything that was given to them before by Moses, the priests kept that same order, right? And that's what they're doing here. So you can write down Exodus 27, 1-8, as far as for these offerings that they were doing. Verse 54, look at what time and what day the heathen had profaned it. Even in that was it dedicated with cymbals and citherns and harps and cymbals. So back when we was reading in the 2nd chapter, right, in the 59th verse, it says, now the 5 and 20th day of the month that they did sacrifice upon the idol altar was upon the altar of God. So that's what we read in Maccabees 1:59. Now, a little bit longer, on the same day, years later, we now went and re-cleansed and rededicated that temple, right? So we took that day, and now we said we're going to know and make everything anew. So 55, it says, then all the people fell upon their faces, worshiping and praising the power of heaven, who had given them good success. And so they kept the dedication of the altar 8 days and offered burnt offerings with gladness and sacrifice of deliverance and praise. So here it says that they kept the feast 8 days, right? Now, again, in the Josephus, they say, that's why the menorah was changed, because of the lights burned for 8 days, right? So you got 8, 4, and 4, and you got the slaves give them what they have now for the 9 stick menorah. But the reason why we kept it for 8 days wasn't because of the lights, right? Kahan Nabiyah read it last week in 2 Maccabees. The 10th chapter. 2 Maccabees, the 10th chapter, and the 5th to the 6th verse. Actually, 5 to 7. Just gonna rehash that. 2 Maccabees 10, verses 5 to 7. It says, now upon the same day that the strangers profaned the temple, on the very same day it was cleansed again, even the 25th day of the same month, the 9th month, which is Kislev or Kislu, right? Verse 6, and they kept 8 days with gladness, as in the feast of the tabernacles, remembering that not long afore they had held the feast of the tabernacles, when as they wandered in the mountains and dens like beasts. So now when you go into Leviticus, the 23rd chapter, we keep the feast of tabernacles for 8 days, right? So they kept this during the same way, right? On the same day, right? Because we now are keeping it in line with when we read in Leviticus 23, I forget the verse at the start, on how we kept it with palm branches and certain things of that nature. Then we go into the Feast of Ingatherings. But now here it says, verse 7, therefore they bare branches and fair boughs and palms also, and sang psalms unto him that had given them good success in cleansing his place, right? So when we do the tabernacle, you say you're going to make your booth and you put your branches and boughs and everything else. Well, they did that on the Feast of Rededication of the altar because they were remembering what we did during the tabernacles. So the ordinance of how we kept this is in line with what we did with tabernacles. Not because of oils burning did we do it for 8 days. It was because of our remembrance of the former holy day or feast week. So now going back to 1 Maccabees 4. If you want to have it in your notes, you can write down Exodus 25, verses 31 to 37 about the original menorah candlestick and how that was done, right? With the 6 branches and the one in the middle. Exodus 25, 31 to 37. Sometimes if you're getting like, decorations and things to put up in your house, be very wary of the menorah, right? Because you get a menorah on there and it's the 9 candlestick menorah and it's not the one that's in the scriptures. I remember early on when I first came into the truth, we were just so zealous just to have stuff, right? It's like, oh, I'm going to put this up, put that up. And then you start looking at it, it was like, I really didn't pay attention to the menorah. I just thought, okay, until we got into the breakdown of the feast, and I was like, oh man, it's messed up. I threw all that stuff out, and then we just made sure we got everything aligned to the scriptures, right? As far as for the original menorah. Mm-hmm.
In the midst of the
7 candlesticks. All that, ooh, that was a good one there, bro. That was a good one there. I like that one, right? Yeah. All right, so verse 56 again. And so they kept the dedication of the altar 8 days and offered burnt offerings with gladness and sacrificed the sacrifice of deliverance and praise. They decked also the forefront of the temple with crowns of gold and with shields. And the gate and the chambers they renewed and hanged doors upon them. Right? So, I mean, man, that's how bad it was. You got to go put doors in. They took the doors off, broke everything off, took the gates down. It's just in shambles. Right? It said, thus was there very great gladness among the people. For that the reproach of the heathen was put away, which is all their uncleanness and wickedness that they had done within the temple and within the nation, right? Moreover, Judas and his brethren, with the whole congregation of Israel, ordained that the days of the dedication of the altar should be kept in their season from year to year by the space of 8 days, from the 25th and 20th day of the month Caslu, with mirth and gladness. And that time also they builded up the Mount Zion with high walls and strong towers round about, lest the Gentiles should come and tread it down as they had done before. Right. So not to be wary that Lysias and them was going to come back. Right. They just left and went into another land and go regroup their forces. They was going to come back. So we got to fortify, our strongholds.
It's good for us adults that reading this and see it, but more so it should be more for the kids that are coming up, right? What we learning today, that's what we're gonna pass down to our children, and that's our Christmas and all those other holidays they always cater to the children, to the kids, because that's what pretty much what it's about. Is we trading one experience to the next generation. So what we're doing right now, if those of us who have kids, when we should think ahead to make sure that they always participate in those holidays, because we're trading that tradition back so it can become continuous.
Verse 61, it says, and that they set there a garrison to keep it, and fortified Bethsura to preserve it, that the people might have a defense against Idumea. Right? So it's interesting that they use, I like the fact that they use Idumea here. Right? So you can start now paralleling nations, because it starts off with Antiochus, and before then it was Alexander. Right? So who Alexander is, what people they are, go into history, find out who Antiochus is, the first, second, third, fourth, however many they are, right? And then now you see that they were preparing for the Idumeans, right? And you go into the history, go back in the Old Testament, you find out who was the ones that was dwelling in Idumea, right? Then it says Edom was the one that was dwelling in Idumea. So this is the way in how you correlate nations together, right? Sometimes like, man, because I've seen certain camps, certain people question how is Esau these people, right? How is Esau that man? I don't know. They start coming up with other things, but just precepting the scriptures align to right, it's telling you what it is, right? It's telling you flat out that the Idumeans are the Greeks, right?
This is the Southern Kingdom that was doing all this fighting, right?
Pretty much so, yeah. In Judea and Jerusalem, yeah.
So how would the Northern Kingdom know to celebrate these holidays?
Over time, when this information comes to them, like when whoever goes to wherever they are, they'll take this forward. Because just like when you read in when we did Purim, right? The information had to spread. They was in one region and said, we're going to keep these days, these 2 days, and honor this. And then they had to send letters, and they had to send people over there to tell them to do it. Then they had to send letters to them for them to do it, right? So at the time, it had to grow. It had to make sure that it spread to everybody. That worked for them that was in that captivity. But now if you were if the Northern Kingdom had already left and gone to another region, of course they wasn't doing it right then and there when the Southern Kingdom was doing it. It had to be something that was going to be kept. It was recorded, and then it was going to be done later on. once that information, once that knowledge got to them. Right?
How would you say that they ever saw the Southern Kingdom?
The Southern Kingdom is here right now. The Southern Kingdom is keeping it now.
Yeah, but the Northern Kingdom, who's to say they ever?
I mean, the Northern Kingdom is keeping it now, I should say. Not Southern Kingdom. The Northern Kingdom is keeping it now.
How so?
You got northern tribes here in America. You got people who's gone down to South America and brought this truth to them too. Right? Going to the Caribbean, going over to Germany, going to the Netherlands, right? You got people who are now, this word is now global through the technology and with the internet and devices and videos and all of that. It's everywhere now. So yeah, over time, this knowledge would have to have been increased so that everybody would get it. That's why Yahushua, what Yahushua said in the gospel, as far as for this truth is going to have to go through all nations. It wasn't just for the disciples or the apostles that was there right then and there, right? It wasn't just for them because they only went to a certain region. They didn't go throughout the whole earth, right? At that time when Yahushua was teaching the discipline of the disciples and the apostles, they didn't go everywhere in the earth. Yahushua was ultimately speaking about everywhere in the earth, this truth had to be preached. So he was setting stage then, and then throughout the regenerations, it would then spread once we got into where we are now. And now we can go everywhere. Now you got people going to Australia, going into this place. Now through the internet, you got some people who's sitting there who most people probably wouldn't have looked at them as an Israelite, right? But Yahushua said, my sheep hear my voice. So if they're clicking and they're going through lines and they're hearing about this group and then somebody's sitting there and they're like, this is interesting because I really never knew my father. And now you start thinking and they start investigating, they start diving deeper into it. And now someone who's probably sitting in Iran is now checking this truth out and they can say, yo, I'm about to start up my own little school over here. I got three people with me and we learning over here. That's how it is, because we don't know every nook and cranny of where brothers is learning this is. We only see but based on what we can find on the internet, right? So you just know that the spirit is just growing in all places, and we just get little testimonies. Like when I seen the camp, I forget somewhere over in Europe, and I was like, "Whoa, they over here! Brothers is out in camps speaking in another language on a corner out there," and I was like, "Wow, years ago, I wouldn't seen it. Now it's like the norm. I expect it. So I'm expecting someone to be in Iran, or I'm expecting someone to be in Korea or Japan doing the same thing.
When those cloven tongues on the Pentecost, the cloven tongues were fired, made those people speak different languages, and they were from nations all over. Was that just Northern?
There was Jews that was coming out of the different nations.
Okay, so that wasn't Northern Kingdom.
That was Jews that was coming out of different nations. Because the way it sounded, it was like it was just other nations. Yeah. It was Jews that was coming out of different nations. So it was just we can't say, because like Kahan brought out before, even when you was reading the gospel, you had a sister who was an Asherite. Right? So you had some of the Southern Kingdom that was with us too. Right, so I mean, I keep saying Southern Kingdom. Some of the Northern Kingdom that was in the Southern Kingdom when you're reading the Gospel, and in the Acts.
So they could have traveled over there and gave them the word too.
I mean, they could have, but I would just say the Northern Kingdom is being represented already in the Gospel in the Southern Kingdom, and vice versa. You had some of the Southern Kingdom, and who we know it to be the Southern Kingdom tribes, that was also a part of the Northern Kingdom. You have remnants of them that was there. But the bulk of them is what we're looking at, right? So you'd have brother or whatever that went up and went into Assyria and fled. But the bulk of them is what the scriptures is referring to. Go ahead,
I just want to read a quick scripture on the commandments and passing it down and teaching it.
Mm-hmm.
Deuteronomy 6. Verse 2. For the sake of time, I could read verse 1, but I'll start with verse 2.
Mm-hmm.
It says, Deuteronomy 6, Midas, fear the Lord thy God to keep all and his commandments, which I command thee, thou and thy son and thy son's son, all the days of thy life, and that thy days may be prolonged. Right? That's a quick one. And then I'll read this one. Verse 7 and 20.
Chapter 7, verse
Yeah,
20.
verse 20. It says, and when thy son asketh thee in time, right? When thy son asketh thee in time to come, saying, what mean the testimonies and the statutes and the judgment which the Lord our God have commanded you?
Chapter 7, verse 20.
I'm sorry, 6 and 20.
6 and 20.
6 and 20.
Deuteronomy.
Yeah, Deuteronomy. It says, and when thy son asketh thee in time to come, saying, what mean the testimonies and the statutes and the judgment which the Lord our God have commanded you? Then thou shalt say unto thy son, we were Pharaoh's bondmen. So it's pretty much going into us coming out. But I say this to emphasize what I said earlier about these things that we're learning today. We gotta pass it down. Tradition. We gotta pass the tradition down, because that's what society, this culture has done, and they've been very good at it. Right? They've been passing down lies and a bunch of lies. So we gotta do the exact same thing and pass it down from generation to generation. Because what we're doing right now, when Moses said in Hosea 4 and 6, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge, because thou hast rejected knowledge, I will also reject thee. So from generation, we've been passing lies to our children. So whatever we pray to the Most High will reject us, because we've been passing lying tradition to them. Right. So they have no knowledge. Going from generation to generation.
You can add Psalm 78, 5 and 7 to that too.
Our parents taught us lies, we learn it, and then we pass it down to the next generation. And the next generation pass it down to the next generation. So lack of knowledge continues.
Mm-hmm.
Away from us.
And of course, I think, which one? Psalms 78, verses 5 to 7. Then I'll read, I think it was just read last week, but I'll read it again. This is in the New Testament, reference of Yahushua being present at the feast that we just read about in the Maccabees. This is St. John 10, 22 to 23. Right, St. John's 10, 22 to 23. The dedication, and it was winter, right? So the winter season was the same thing that we just read in the 9th month, that they kept it in the Maccabees. The same thing here in the winter season, they're keeping it during Yahushua's time, right? And it's called the Feast of the Dedication, or Hanukkah's dedication, right? It says, and Yahushua walked the temple in Solomon's porch, right? So it shows you that this is still relevant, or was relevant during Christ's time, and it's still relevant during our time, if we are keeping the tradition of using Yahushua as our example, and doing those same things that he did, and keeping those same things that he did, right? So, it's scriptures like that. This is good. Someone sent me a text, happy holidays, right? Which is general, right? Because, sometimes in the office, people say, yeah, Merry Christmas. And others say, oh, Happy Hanukkah too, right? Because we don't want to leave everybody out, right? Because some people don't keep Christmas, they'll keep Hanukkah. I saw in the news today, or last night, is Happy Hanukkah on the news. I was like, oh, okay, right? Then when they sent Happy Holiday, they say, yeah, Happy Feast of Dedication. I put the John 10:22 right after it, right? kind of so they can go look at it and like we talked about last week. But again, it's a good way of highlighting what the scripture says and not just what is the normal status quo of everybody just saying it. Now you got a point of reference. Because some people may say, well, I don't even know what that is. What is that? Because you're so used to Hanukkah, right? Most people don't know what Hanukkah is, right? They just say, it just sounds good. Happy Hanukkah. I say, happy Feast of Dedication. Yeah. Happy Feast of whatever you used to say, right? But you put a scripture with it, then they can go read it and be like, why did he say that? Why did he give me this, right? So.
I can show you guys if we finish. The different versions of the Bible, that same verse. You see the way they translate it. They call it different things. Sometimes they say the Feast of the Temple, dedication of the temple, like the temple celebration. They just have these weird stuff. It's like you see feast dedication most of the time. Other stuff.
I think you go on like Bible Hub, and Bible Hub has like all the different ones, and you can see, yeah. All right. So if anybody got any comments, we're going to say happy Feast of Dedication to those who are listening and watching throughout the globe. Those who will probably watch this on the retake, watch it later on. Most High's will everybody was able to enjoy this week with the right understanding, the right inspiration, be able to feast, right? Because sometimes we kind of forget those things. We feast 8 days. I know life takes its course and we're not able to do it like how we would do it in the kingdom, or we would do it if we were in our land, if we would do it if we were there with those men and women that was present during the time that this was first instituted. There was actual parties and feasts that was going on where people actually was cooking day by days and doing certain things. So we kind of separate for that. We do the first and the last days, but in the middle we kind of had a good time as well. That's why I say 8-day feast. Work comes in and everything else. So, but always try to consider the day every day, consider the intent of the day every day while we're doing this feast.
Also push it as much as we used to push Christmas.
Yeah.
When we were in there, we dressed up and things like that. Day of Christmas.
Decorate,
and then we dressed up in a good spirit. We got to push it even more because now we know our point of reference in history. We can go back to that, give us our true identity, what this was for.
right? And I kind of agree. In closing, I think it was last week. Zaquan was talking about, you can see the Spirit drawing more people closer and closer to scriptures, or drawing people. Now it's not a question about Israel or where the people. I think now it's I'm beginning to see the norm that a lot of people are beginning to see that they are the people of the Bible, right? That they are these people, right? It's becoming more apparent than it was some years ago, a decade or two ago. It was still like, what? No, we the Gentiles. It's like now people realize it's easier, more conversational. Yeah, Christ was black. Yeah, I know that. That's nothing. Christ is black. Yeah, I can see it. I can see it because everybody, it's like, okay, yeah, all right, that's one. Now it's just building the faith to keep the things that's written in there. Right? It's easy to say it and acknowledge it, but the application and the keeping the tradition that's here is the next test. Right? Who's gonna denounce those things and jump aboard and now keep this? That's where it's falling short from a lot of people that we talk to.
Funny you said that about Jesus being black. I was talking to this person and he said, yeah, I know for years that Jesus is black. I could never prove it. I just knew he wasn't a white man because just the region and all this and that, and the way he died, a black man death.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no way he could be a white man. But I was like, actually it says scripture. And I gave her the scripture. Now she's like all in. She's I never always trust the Bible because it was a white man.
Yeah.
Now she actually has the reference to read it.
All right.
And know that she's not really convicted to continue now. She's happily reading the scripture.
Yeah. In some cases, like when the Most High said in the affliction, they should seek me early. You having some people who are looking, not to say that folks wasn't looking for the answers, but certain things is a little bit more obvious now, right? It's like, what we used to follow, what we used to look for, it ain't doing it. It ain't getting it, right? So now I'm a little bit more open to looking and checking this out now, right? What are you guys really about? Like, what is this really talking about? Like, you guys believe in Christ, so now those questions are becoming a little bit more pointed, of interest, as opposed to just not wanting to deal with it at all, right? So I do see that vibration of folks becoming more aware, but can they go full circle? We know that the majority aren't, but they kind of can see a little, visual of what's there.
The more we out there, well, you can imagine the time we out there till now, people start to see it's not bad or it's not a fashion.
Right.
The word is being taught. You know how sometimes something come and then give them some time, you won't see them, they'll disappear. As opposed to that, they keep multiplying all over the place.
Yeah. No, I think for us, especially when we out and about, you always get, my nephew into that. My uncle into that, right? they kind of like all have somebody who's affiliated, right? I know all about that. Yeah, my uncle was telling me this. So my grandfather would be into this, right? So it's not just too adverse, too abstract. People know what it is. All right, so we're going to send out the closing prayers. Again, happy Feast of Dedication to all those, Lord's will. Scriptures were inspiring, motivational. You probably learned something different that we didn't learn before. It's always about growth. And may the Most High be with you in the remaining of the closing of this day. And we'll see each other during the upcoming class and the Sabbath service the day following. All right, so with that, we'll stay tuned for the closing prayers. And again, Ashar Kanakah. Let's get the blinds. Barakatah Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Asherah, Nathalanawa, Par Yahagapin, Dwara Aman, La Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Ath Yasha Allah. English translation. Blessed are you, Yahweh, the Most High, in the name of Christ, that gives to us the fruit of the vine. Thank you, so be it. To the Most High, in the name of Christ, with Israel. A Madra Punyoy Jerusalem, stand and face Jerusalem. Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Babakushah, Shemai, Lanawa, Aitha, Yam Yan, Aitha, Shalat, Mayaka Allah, Waha Allah Hayam, Tazwadakim, La, Shemal Ayel, Barat, Rapah, Magun, Wahakazayak, Banya, Yasha Allah, Washalat, Lanawa, Rabiam, Kakama, Rabiam, Da'ai, Rabiam, Bayana, Rabiam, Sabalangwa, Rabiam, Amawan, Rabiam, Aqua, Rabiam, Ahabim, Rabiam, Magana, Rakanaya, Wasalat, Ko, Kata Ayamnawa, Laha Akim, Wa Akiwa, Wayasha Allah, Thum Yad, Waiwalam, Ba'asham, Yahawashai, Kawada, Aman. English translation. Most High, in the name of Christ, please to us now, right now. Send Michael and the righteous angels of powers to watch over, bless, heal, protect, and make strong the children of Israel, and send to us much wisdom, much knowledge, much understanding, much patience, much faith, much brotherhood, much love, much spiritual protection, and forgive all our sins for the brothers and sisters in Israel, always and forever. In the name of Yahushua, or Christ, thank you, so be it. Four Corners Prayer. Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Barak Noah, Rayasha Allah, Wabath Yasaparim, Shema, Yashir Allah, Yahweh, Allah, Hayanawa, Yahweh, Akhan. Translation: Most High in the name of Christ, bless us and Israel and the house of books or schools. And hear, O Israel, the Lord our power is one power. Blessing for the food. All right. Yahweh, Gadawal, Basham, Adawanya, Yahweh Shai, Babakushah, Barak, Ma'akal, Yanawa, Shatayawa, Yanawa, Yayan, Yanawa, Lakam, Yanawa, Shakarai, Yanawa, Zakad, Shaw, Kanaka, Bahasham, Yahawashai, Thawada, Aman. All right. So, circle up, sisters be seated. Shalom Yashral again. Happy feast of dedication.